All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for your patience getting the show started just a little bit later than I anticipated. Sometimes things are out of your hands. Good morning. On today's show, a lot to talk about, man. This has been happening more and more where I just don't feel like I have enough time to hit all the flows that I've developed. So in terms of guests, we got a couple of folks that are scheduled to call into or Zoom into the show this morning. First up is Steve Gooden. He is he's currently on city council. He was appointed to replace Jeff Pastor. He's a white male Republican seeking your vote. And we'll chop it up with him for the first time later on this morning. Check it out. Make sure you stick around for that. At about 8:30 a.m. approximately, we're supposed to have that conversation. Then at 9 a.m., we're going to talk with a woman who put together an organization called Boss. They've got a premiere of their, I need to ask, is it a documentary? What exactly, how does she want to call it? But that's going to be happening later in October, not in September, but in October. So give you a heads up on that. Some stuff that's happening around town, happening around the city. Along the way, numerous things to discuss. I mean, the chatter about the Biden administration's response to Haitian migrants and some of the images, including today's cover art, is getting louder and louder and louder. Now I'm reading that the Biden administration or officials from Biden's administration is going to sit down with civil rights leaders and members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. But some people are saying this is a scene straight out of like a slave movie or the Django or something like that. It's just not a good look and potentially could have a disastrous effect on Biden's and the Democrats' overall agenda when it comes to the midterm elections. And then you got the presidential elections coming up in 4 4 years. So right around the corner, 2024, it'll be here before you know it. So a lot to discuss this morning. Plus, there's a couple of viral videos that I think pose some interesting questions that I might put before you this morning and get your thoughts about it. All that and more, plus the choppers coming up as well. 513-873-7134 if you want to share your thoughts. Now, I'm going to roll the intro, give you a little time to share the show, get comfortable, whatever you need to do, and then the flows will commence. Don't go anywhere.
I like to introduce my man. I like to introduce my man. And you go by the name.
NathanIvy.com. Mr. Ivy know the show must go on. And far as Cincinnati, man, I put on. Tunes made another flame beat for me to cook on. Raised dogs, close this, yeah, too strong. Team AI, chop it up at the chop shop. Top notch with the king flow, the hot shot. Cop squats in, listen to the real. Jumping like hopscotch, nobody harder than, oh, no, think not. Not only citywide, but nationwide. Superlative, keep it locked like them Haitian guys. Put the truth in the airwaves, we talk about it. Brand new like the templates, let's be about it. Who got the info by the AM? Jono be the rapper, got them jamming when they play him. Staying in my lane, they ain't gotta okay him. Who the host with the scoop? Yeah, they gon' say him. Ivy, so superlative like a bag of drippos. Show you where the bricks at, Cincinnati Reds at. One time where my people at. Team NI, where my people at. It's the 513, yeah, you know the flow. What's the word, Nate? Let them know the show. One time where my people at. Team NI, where my people at.
Everybody, welcome back. It's always my pleasure to be with you, and let's get into it. 513-873-7134 if you want to share your thoughts. I'll put the number on the screen. You can give me a call if you'd like to. Good morning. Let's talk about it. Talk to me this morning. What's going on? What's today? Thursday? I thought so far we've had some pretty strong conversations every day of the week. So hopefully today will be no different. I got a lot of things on the table to discuss with you, including an interview with a man that if you live in the city of Cincinnati, he wants your vote. He wants your vote. He needs your vote. He wants to be elected to his first term on city council. Speaking about Steve Gooden. He's a white male Republican scheduled to give us a Zoom style or phone call this morning. We'll see what works, and we'll talk to him about his campaign. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, and good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Who's in here? Let's see what's up. What's up, Ashley? She writes good morning to Nate and the Choppers. Ray writes good risings all. Sharp writes good morning, Nate and the Choppers. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. What did I miss? What's been happening since yesterday? Anything come across your radar screen? You're like, we got to talk about this. hit me with direct message, or you can leave it in the chat. When it's early, I tend to see more. Sometimes, man, the messages start coming in. You just miss it. You just miss it. Lots to talk about. Plus, I got to call out the Inquirer a little bit. Yeah, they got a piece up talking about how they fact checked the mayoral election, but if you look at it, it's very biased. It's like straight up propaganda almost. It's like bait and switch. The headline reads, "We're fact checking," but when you read the article, they're not really fact checking. Fact check what Man Pureval got wrong in the debate. And maybe I'm reading this. This is written by Scott Wortman and Sharon Coolidge. Maybe it's me, but the way I read this ain't really no fact checking. Not really. Not really. It's like they took that opportunity to take some shots at Pureval. That's what it seems like to me. But I'll get into that maybe this morning. Lots of things to discuss. Now, yesterday, we spent a lot of time talking about a case of a Black female who was killed after she went to a woman's home. They apparently had some kind of altercation at a youth football event, and woman ends up getting shot dead. Joe Dieter says that's the very essence of self-defense, so no charges. Just want to know, does anybody have any residual thoughts? Sometimes you have these conversations, and then days afterward, new information comes in. If that's out there, I'm still interested. That's a very terrible story right there. Heart goes out to all the families, and those children growing up without a mother. Just a really sad situation. Very sad situation. It's Thursday, which means that we're one day closer to Sunday. On Sunday, the Bengals will meet the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I just don't understand how you live in Cincinnati and you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Calling you out. What's wrong with you? I just don't get it. It's like you're just here to irritate us. It's like your sole reason for being here is just to irritate Cincinnatians. You know, one of my best friends I grew up with, he was one of these damn living in Cincinnati Steelers fans. Now, he no longer lives in Cincinnati. He lives in Atlanta now. Only slack I gave him is that he spent some time growing up he went to school in Pittsburgh. He went to Pittsburgh University. That was the only slack I gave him. Other than that, I would have ate his ass up. Well, how dare you? How dare you? I don't understand it. That'll be a lot of fun over the weekend. We'll see what happens. 513-873-7134. If you'd like to share your thoughts this morning, I am here to receive them. Let's get back into it. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and good morning, good morning. I'm reading that Melvin Van Peebles passed away at 89 years old. Anybody hip to Melvin Van Peebles? He's Mario Van Peebles' father. Some people say he's the godfather of Black directors. You ever seen a movie called Watermelon Man or Sweetback's Badass Song? Yeah. You ain't hip to that? You should get hip to it. Sweetback's Badass Song, the intro of that movie. Woo, you couldn't put that on Netflix. You ain't gonna see that on Netflix. Believe me, anybody know what I'm talking about? You will not see that on Netflix. It's a little too risque. Mario Van Peebles, pioneer. I bet you your favorite Black director has been influenced by him. No doubt about that. Good morning to you. 513-873-7134. There it is. I've given the number out quite a bit. This morning, we may talk about when I don't know, man. Listen, I'm so happy that the media, like from time to time, you have these missing person cases, right? And it seems as if all the media outlets are like working in unison to try to bring awareness and find the missing individual. And when that happens, family, in my opinion, more times than not, it tends to be that the missing person is a white woman, especially a blonde-haired white woman. I just don't see that kind of energy when Black girls or Black women disappear. And I'm not the only one. Matter of fact, there's a lot of chatter about that going on right now because of a most recent case in which authorities say they found the body of the young woman. And listen, I mean, condolences to their family, Black, white, or whatever. You know, you losing somebody that loves you, that you love, that's close to you. That ain't easy to do. That's a very difficult thing right there. But I'm just saying, I like to see that all the way across the board. We just don't see it like that. We don't see that across the board like that. You know what I'm saying? We just don't see it. If you missed it yesterday, midday juice, midweek. So midday juice, and it may probably go back to Tuesday and Thursday, but for now, midday juice is midweek. So Wednesdays at 1 p.m. And Ashley received an email from someone who is the mother of his children. He's got 2 sons, is driving him crazy. Won't let him see him children, making it more difficult, lying to the kids. I thought that Ashley, she gave some great advice. If you missed it, you can check it out on CDM's page, and you can follow her on Facebook and YouTube as well. And she's also doing a column for the Cincinnati Herald. We're going to keep that book. You hear me? No matter what? Oh, okay. Yeah. So check that out. Look at dude's face right there. He is not happy. He's not happy. Check that out. Midweek. Good morning to you. 513-873-7134. I still got the number for you. You can check it out for yourself when you get ready. Good morning. Midweek. Remember that. It should be easy to remember, right? Midweek juice. Let me see. Tracy writes, yes, Ask Ashley did a great job talking about the subject. I thought so too. Janice writes, yes, I am familiar with Mr. Van Peebles. Yeah. Anybody ever see Sweetback's Badass Song? Don't watch it with kids. That's all I can say. Don't watch it with the children. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not going to go well. What's up, son? Coming in? Showing off toys, huh?
Look.
Well, the camera's right there. See right here. How you sleep? Oh, you found him, huh?
Yeah, he was on my desk.
He was on your desk. I figured he was somewhere close. You getting a kick out of seeing yourself?
Huh?
I said you enjoying seeing yourself? Huh? All right, Daddy's got to work. I love you.
Make me sing
I said, are you enjoying seeing yourself on camera? Yeah. Okay. Say good morning.
Good morning, that chopper.
Right.
Go! Get to the chopper!
It wouldn't be right if you didn't come in and do that, right? You know, it is what it is. 513-873-7134. Let me talk about this Haitian migrant crisis and how it could be a death blow for the Biden administration, even though it's early on. It's because people don't forget, and black folks don't forget. With a lot of black folks, you get one shot. You get one shot. This is a bad look for the Biden administration. And that's just the way it goes. When you're the president, it's like being the quarterback of the National Football League team. Sometimes you get credit for the win that you didn't really do a lot to get. And then when stuff hits the fan, you're going to get a lot of credit you maybe don't deserve. It's just the way it goes. And Biden said that he was going to be more compassionate than Trump. He was going to be he was going to have a more humanitarian U.S. foreign policy across the board, but also when dealing with the crisis on the southern border. He said that's what came out of his mouth during the campaign. So when you set that up, you got to stand up to it. It is what it is. Man, people are drawing images from like the antebellum South and this. I mean, it's just going to take off. And, you know, in light of the fact that there's still a lot of black voters who feel like, it's just in my circle, who feel as if Biden really hasn't come through. This ain't looking right at all for the Democrats. It ain't looking good for your midterm election. It ain't looking good for 2024, because at the end of the day, this is just my feeling. Voters don't want to hear all about the inside baseball about why you didn't get it done. We don't want to hear about the filibuster in the Senate. Nobody gives a damn about that. People these days only care about results. That's all they care about is results. Show me the money, bring in the bag, deliver. And if Biden ain't delivering and on top of it, the image is that your administration, as when it comes to melanated people, is just as bad as anybody else's, then why should we vote for you? Why shouldn't we vote for the other guy or gal or whoever it might be? It's just not enough distance. Not enough distance, in my opinion. That's just a real bad look. I mean, every time I get on any social media platform, I come across these images or the videos. It's a real bad look. And and I was watching the White House press conference with the press secretary. I mean, in some levels, I mean, she's trying to explain something that she had no hand in. It just don't look right. It's a real bad look. And Biden needs to do something big and bold. And, the United States, and in my opinion, the European countries across the board I don't know if they're still pissed, but it appeared to me as if, the Haitian people were the victims of their own success. The Haitian revolution, repelling the slave trade of the French, kicking Napoleon Bonaparte's ass out of Haiti. Then the Haitians come back 20 years later with all kind of new rules. I mean, there's a reason why the Haitian people have been suffering for a long time. And a lot of it goes back to that Haitian revolution. They beat the hell out of a European power. And then all the European powers got together and said, you know what, we're going to take it out on the Haitian people. And on some levels, people believe that even in modern day times, when it comes to this country, that there's still some of that animus. And people may not be able to say what it is, but they feel like there's still a lot of animus when it comes to our U.S. foreign policy, when it comes to Haitians. Because look at it. On one hand, you got the juxtaposition of how the Afghan migrants are being dealt with. And oh, by the way, we should absorb and help the Afghan people because we caused it. But some would argue the same thing has been happening with Haiti over the decades. In some cases, their direct and indirect involvement with the CIA. And then in other cases, by turning their backs to humanitarian crisis, in which in other countries, we going in and doing whole regime changes. So it's just a bad look all the way around. And a lot of people are saying, where's the equity? Where's the parity? Why are we treating these people different than those people? Okay, I see you. Looking good. You gonna come in here and get on camera and say hello? You say what now? You gonna come say hello to the people? Oh, look how nice she looks. Look how nice she looks. Okay, bye. You'll explain that later. Nothing. We can talk. We don't have enough time to talk about it. We'll talk about it later. Good morning to you. So now you seeing images like this. I'm telling you, this shit right here, this is never going to go away. In 4 years, these images are still going to be circulating unless the Biden administration does something unprecedented. And that's what a situation like this warrants. It warrants an unprecedented action on the presidential level. I mean, and I think everything is at stake. But that's just me. What do you think? 513-873-7134. I mean, how do you feel about this? I want to talk to black folks, in particular black voters. Do you look at this as a direct black eye on the Biden administration? Do you blame the Biden administration? Does it go to the top in your opinion? Or do you feel like this is just par for the course no matter who's in the White House? White male, female, black female, Democrat, Republican, it would make no difference. I want to get your thoughts about it. Again, 513-873-7134. Share your thoughts with me, please. I love to hear it. So is it Jersey Day or something? Everybody got to wear that? Blue and gold day. So everybody's going to be wearing okay, looks nice. Oh, you look real nice. Look at you. Oh, I created something special. I did. What? I created something special. Me and your mama. All right, good morning. Good morning to you. Daryl Brandy writes greetings. When you get teenagers, man, you got to joke with them. When you get teenagers. Daryl writes, good morning, Nate and the Choppers. Naisha's in the house. Hey, good to see you, Naisha. She writes, yeah, no, this is messed up. But how messed up is it? And who do you blame? Do you blame the Biden administration? Well, I mean, it's happening under the Biden administration, right? And then the other thing is, I want to call out some black people on this. because some black people, when it's Haitians, some black people more closely identify with the Haitians because of the melanin, right? Or the history or their family roots. But when this was like our brothers and sisters coming from countries from the southern border, I remember some black people like, man, I don't care. It is a problem. Wait a minute. Whether it was a problem, it wasn't a problem then. Why is it a problem now? I mean, I talked to people on this show that was like, I don't care about no Mexicans. I don't care about what's happening. I'm like, wait a minute. This is a humanitarian crisis. These are people. I don't care. But now that it's Haitians, they all up in their feelings about it. Huh? Let's see. Clifford writes, black Haitian people are no better than cattle, according to U.S. government. See, this is bad. This is bad. If I'm the Biden administration, I got to do something unprecedented. They're gonna have to do something unprecedented to wipe this away. If not, I fear, and really, I don't know why I fear, but for them, they should fear that people are gonna take it out on you with the midterm elections. You already fighting an uphill battle because the perception is, and even though it's less than a year, the perception is everything. The perception is, and the needle's not really moving a whole lot. The needle is not moving a whole lot. So if I'm the Democrats, man, I'm thinking real hard about this filibuster because you got to deliver. Who cares about what might happen in the future? You got to live in the moment. And right here, right now, black folks, the electorate in general is looking at you thinking, what you going to do? You got the ball, what you going to do? And in a lot of people's opinion, the Biden administration is just running in place right now. Just running in place. If they do away with the filibuster and start delivering some of the items, like some of the big things, the legislative things and victories and things like that, voters will remember that. They'll remember that in 2022. They'll remember that in 2024. It doesn't matter what the Republicans might do. It don't matter. The only thing that matters is right here, right now. Remember I said this to my Democrat friends. I'm sure they feel the same way. They probably feel the same way, but something needs to be done. The other thing about this Haitian migrant situation is that you got prominent Haitians that are in the Biden administration. The Biden administration was so happy to say, oh, yeah, we got these good Haitian folks. They're going to be a part of what we're doing here. Okay, so what are we looking at here? This needs to be dealt with. As I understand it, the U.S. border agents that are captured in these images and videos that you see on horseback, they've all been placed on administrative leave prior to a damn investigation. Number one, their heads got to roll. They got to go. If I'm the Biden administration, some way, somehow, they all got to go. That's number one. All of them. And you might even get some collateral damage. It might be a few mofos that get swept up in it who had nothing to do with it. They got to go too. Y'all got to go. Because that's number one. That's number one. If you keep your job and you do some F-ish to somebody, but you keep your job, the powers that be don't fire you, the message is they don't think you did anything wrong. And if they end up getting their jobs back and things like that, that don't matter. At least you've done what you got to do. They got to go. All the border agents, anybody on horseback got to go. We out of here. Turn in your badge. Put the horse in the corral. Okay. Holla at you. You know what I'm saying? You guys to go. Like whoever thought that would, whoever said, you know what? Yeah, let's get out on horseback. That'll give us an advantage. Whoever said that has to go immediately. Well, sir, how do you want us to handle this? Let's break out the horses. Bad idea. Bad idea. You got to go, bro. You got to go. I'm sorry. You got to go. 513-873. That's number one. That's number one what the people are looking for. And then beyond that, the Biden administration, they should be in a room right now coming up with some unprecedented moves, some stuff they've never done before. That's it. Nisha writes, yeah, we can bring 95,000 Afghan refugees here, but send back 86 Haitian migrants and whip them? Right. That's the perception. Yes, the United States should be absorbing the Afghan refugees because we caused it. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you before, the pull-out method doesn't work. It doesn't work in terms of intercourse. And it is not a good effective and a method of birth control, nor is it a good effective method when dealing with regime change in other people's countries. It always goes badly. The pull-out method never works. And you see my daughter, pull-out method. 16 years ago. Just it's not my cycle. I'm just gonna pull out. See what happens. See, that's what happens. Let me see. So we can absorb all these Afghan refugees, but then less than 100 Haitian migrants got to go back because we ain't got no room for you. It just don't make sense. You had the CEO, and see, this is not just the U.S. government. This is across the board. You had the CEO of Airbnb, right? He comes out and pledges that they will donate rooms in Airbnbs across the nation to absorb Afghan refugees, right? At their own expense. Like they're gonna pay the house or property owner. Airbnb is gonna do this so that they can provide emergency services for Afghan refugees. You ain't heard nobody say a damn thing like that for the Haitians. And I don't know what it is. I don't get it. Like none of us is old enough to remember when the Haitians beat the hell out of Napoleon Bonaparte and kicked his ass out of Haiti. No, none of us is old enough to remember that. But it seems like all the European nations got together and said, you know what? We don't like that. I mean, it's some ill stuff, man, where the Haitians had to pay the slave owners for the loss of their slaves. And then the French, for many, many years, they had a standing policy where any goods and services that they got from Haiti, they got at a 50% discount because the Haitians owed the French reparations for ending slavery of Haitians by French, which is the craziest thing ever. So let me get this straight. You enslave me, we rise up, revolt, kick your ass out of our country, and I owe you? I owe you? That's what they did to the Haitian people. That's the untold story about Haiti, or many people know this. I ain't telling you nothing that you don't already know. This is a chop shop, very smart, intelligent people here, but that's what's not talked about enough when we talk about Haiti. And the United States has been complicit ever since. We've been complicit ever since. The former president was a thug and a dictator. The Haitian people reached out. The United States said, we're going to back him. Then the country's destabilized after his assassination with no real help. And then, of course, Haiti has still been, continues to be the victim of very serious earthquakes that decimate the country. And a lot of people still look at the United States and say, we're not doing enough. Now, I'm not in Haiti. I can't tell you. I'm not on the ground. I'm just telling you what's being out there, what's being reported, what we can read in the media and news and things like that. So, is there sort of a collective memory of against the Haitian people? Maybe, perhaps. TNT writes, good morning. Angela writes, good morning, Nathan and Choppers. Good morning to you, Angela. Good to see you. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Good morning. Nat writes, good Thursday, Choppers. Good morning to you. Janice writes, good morning, my friends. Good morning to you. Dale writes, the Haitian situation is a long-term American policy issue. Yes, the current administration is in charge, but let's not absolve the past 7 to 8 administrations. Their hands are dirty too. Correct, Amondo. We're leveling up. Anthony writes, good morning, Chop Shop. Good morning to you. Tony writes, happy Friday Eve. I guess it is a happy Friday Eve. Yeah, Thursday's a new Friday. Yeah, it is a happy Friday Eve. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Anthony writes, like and share, fam. Good morning to you. Clarence writes, good morning, Choppers. Janice writes, I will say they were totally unprepared for the onslaught of that number of people, nor organization at all. Darlene writes, greetings, Nate and the Choppers from the OTR. Good morning to you. What's up with the OTR? Woke up this morning. It's chilly. It's chilly, and I love it. I love it. The insects are going bye-bye. Let's just talk about the insects. I mean, this past summer, man, these damn cicadas. I miss them. I miss them. I miss the cicadas because of people like Tracy in Cincinnati and Crystal These people were all in their feelings about the cicadas, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I did. It was much fun. It was much fun. I miss watching my son get all scared of cicadas and stuff. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. They didn't really bother me that much, except for that one time back in the summer when I went to work out by walking through Eden Park. It was the worst decision ever. Like literally, it was like something out of a freaking movie, y'all. I'll never forget it. The sound they made was so loud that it hurt my ears. It was so loud. Swarms of them. They just took over Eden Park. And I abandoned the park for like a month. I'm like, that's your park. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to walk somewhere else. I'm not going to walk any park anymore. It's like you were walking through the park and you hear the insects whispering, get out. Get your blackers out of here. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to you. I'm walking up the street. People are driving by. They're all over your back, sir. I'm like, what the hell? I'm not all creepy crawly like that about insects. I grew up with insects. Some in the house. Some in the house. I grew up with insects, so I'm not all insect phobic like that. It was more fun for me. I just love every day tapping in and Crystal and Tracy being the heebie-jeebies about it. It was hilarious, man. Shout out to the cicadas, man. I wish y'all come back. Come see us again before 17 years, man. Don't wait that long. Brandy writes, good morning. Maurice writes, glorious resurrection. Wait a minute. What am I seeing here? Oh, okay. I'm going to have to get that roller on there. Maurice writes, glorious resurrection is not a blow to Biden. The Haitian president was assassinated because their coronavirus situation was lower than other countries. Ain't that something? Marisha writes, good morning. Andrielle writes, good morning, Nate and friends. El Griot writes, good risings, everyone. Good to see you. Regina writes, good morning. Make it a great day. Absolutely, for sure. So Steve Gooden is scheduled to give us a Zoom style call later on today at about 8:30 a.m. approximately. So in about 30 minutes. And he is currently on city council. So first time I ever got a chance to talk with Steve Gooden. I'm looking forward to it. And get a sense of what his campaign's all about. And we can make a decision as to whether we should vote for him or not. Okay. I think he already wanted to run for city council. And then, he got this opportunity to run as somebody on council, which I think is just a huge advantage because people get a chance to see you in the job. And you get a chance to run from within. I think that's a huge advantage. I wonder what he thinks. Tracy writes, Cincinnati will lose that game. Oh, my God, Tracy. Please tell me you're not one of these damn Cincinnati-based Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Oh, my God. Sayrod writes, good Grand Risings, family. Nat writes, Sharon Coolidge is affirmative action at its worst. Terrible reporter, shaking my head. I don't know if I would call her a terrible reporter. I don't think of her as she do her job. She must be doing something because she keeps a job. The Inquirer keeps her employed, so she must be doing something right. I know that Tamara Denard did not like Sharon Coolidge at all. I remember after that first court date, she was leaving and Sharon Coolidge caught up to her. She was like, I don't like you. I don't like you. The Cincinnati Inquirer, they posted this today. Fact check what Mann and Pureval got wrong in debate. So I clicked on it. I love a good fact check. And I don't know. It was fact check week. It was weak on the facts and the checking to me. How long has Mann been in office? Apparently there was some back and forth about that. Yada, yada, yada. But what was really interesting is that during that, I'm not sure if you watched it, but during the mayoral debate on Tuesday, David Mann said something that was quite interesting. He said that basically that Avtab's job as clerk of courts was not terribly important. Not terribly important. I thought that was quite interesting. I'm not sure if I agree with that at all. He said basically as clerk of courts, under the statutes of Ohio, his only responsibility is to keep track of the papers. So it's interesting that he's trying to reduce the role that Avtab has played in the role of Hamilton County Clerk of Courts. It's very, very interesting. And this is what two reporters from Cincinnati Inquirer chose to fact check. And I'm like, well, what are you fact checking? Like, are you fact checking whether you think the clerk of court's office is important or not? Here's what they turned it into. When asked by the Inquirer what his day-to-day routines were like, or how many days a week he's in office, or for how many hours, Pureval wouldn't specify. So they took that opportunity to turn it into a critique of how much time Avtab Pureval spends actually in the office, which was never the question in the first place. That was never the issue. I thought the issue was whether you thought the Hamilton County Clerk of Court's job was terribly important or not. But now here you asking Avtab what his day-to-day routine is. Well, I mean, hell, city council, that's part-time. It's a part-time job. You're one of 9. So how is that? So how is one of 9 more important than the only one? To me, this seemed like some goobly got from Sharon Coolidge and who is this? Scott Wortman. And it seemed like a very thinly veiled attempt to try to throw some darts at Avtab Pureval. That's the way I read it. Again, it just seemed like I turned on there. I clicked on it to see fact checking, and what it turned into is a hit piece almost. Got to watch these kind of things. Oh my God. Were people Pureval fired allowed to talk? Because that came up as well, which I thought was quite interesting. And from reading from this, it appears that back on August 1st of 2019, the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners passed a resolution releasing all 15 employees from any claims made against them, which means they can speak and say what they want to say, which is exactly what Avtab Pureval said on stage. So it's just really interesting what they chose to fact check. Like when I click on a fact checking, I want you to check facts, things that were brought up as facts that perhaps are not facts, not your opinion about the job that somebody did or how much time they spend, doing the job. That's something completely different. But, it is what it is. We already know what we're talking about. But I don't have a problem with any of those reporters. They doing their job. You know what I'm saying? That's what the Inquirer pays them to do. That's what they're doing. Again, they must be doing something right. Dale writes, Nate, write a response to the editor about the Inquirer's biased coverage. We cannot let that slide. Man equals status quo. She writes, Steeler Nation, baby. Oh, my God. Damn. Anthony writes, have a female friend that lives here. She bleeds black and gold. Can't stand her. I can't stand. Unless they chop us, I can't stand nobody. You live in Cincinnati and you're a Steeler fans, I can't stand your ass unless you're a part of Choppers. Then it's okay. Maurice writes, heard that yesterday about Mr. Van Peebles. Yeah, a legend. Your favorite black director, that's his favorite black director, more than likely. One of the OGs. Tracy writes, they don't do that for our people. Melvin Van Peebles, original independent black media owner. Very right about that. TNT writes, this is America. Clifford writes, Nate, I'm a diehard Bengal fan since the beginning in 1968. Bengals never want to win. Fans satisfied if record is 6-11. I understand people living in Cincinnati being Steeler fans, even with a full set of teeth. What? I don't understand. This is some things you should not do. Some things you should not do. You know what I'm saying? Have some damn pride. Tracy writes, good morning, young prince. Good morning with that stone face, Junior. Maxine's in the house. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Good morning. All right, so let's go straight to the phones here. We get a phone call. Let me go straight to the call. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, comrade.
Good morning to you. What's up, Black Russian?
Not a whole lot. Hey, I'm glad that you changed your tune about this Joe Biden. I mean, I could have sworn 48 hours ago you were saying you kind of brushed off what was going on with the Biden administration. I've been listening to some alternative. You kind of did.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. I'm glad you highlighted it today that this is a big problem for Joe Biden. It is.
I said it was a big problem yesterday. No, what I said is that I thought the drop was being disingenuous. I still don't believe he gives a damn about the Haitian people whatsoever. It's just something for him to talk about to criticize the Biden administration. I mean, two things can be true at the same time.
Why don't you think he care about the Haitians? Why don't you think he care about the Haitians? Why don't you think he care about the Haitians? They black people, right? He black. I mean, he ain't no Democrat, but he black, like the Haitians. I'm just trying to figure this one out, man. Like, why are you assuming that Drop don't like the Haitian people?
Well, I mean, it's just sum total of all the things he said and the positions he's taken over the years when he's called in. You know, I mean, in my opinion, I think it's just something for him to talk about to criticize Biden. I mean, that's his fault. But I believe that it's not my fault. I believe that it's his fault. I believe that.
Oh, of course it's your fault. That's your feeling. You're responsible for your own feelings.
No. It's his fault for the way that he's conducted himself and portrayed himself over the years. It's led me to this conclusion about it. I could be wrong, but I believe that I'm right.
Okay. You know, I listen to alternative radio too. There's other black voices. Like I was listening to Wyatt Live, and he was saying the same thing like 2 days ago about what you're saying today. I'm just glad that y'all on the same page today.
Well, I mean, okay.
But as it relates to your critique of Sharon Coolidge and Wortman, I mean, I think they're doing their job. I mean, these were big highlights in the debate about AFTAB job hopping, you know, about him firing people. You know, I'm surprised they didn't even ask him about his corruption situation in 2018 when he ran for Congress. That was something I could have sworn that would have came up, but it didn't. When he had to go to the Board of Elections, the Ohio Elections Commission to explain why he was commingling funds between his campaign accounts. I'm surprised they ain't come up.
Oh, that was minor.
But minor? Oh,
to me,
hell no, it wasn't minor.
As a voter, it was minor. To me.
To you, I get it, but I guess it just shows to me that, you know, we got all this corruption at City Hall, and here we go, a job hopper who had his own corruption issue, wanting to leave the city. I mean, he's not going to lead by example because he had the same issue going on that basically these other policies had going on as far as campaign financing.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, one thing that's a difference between AFTAB and Mann is that when I go to AFTAB's website, he's disclosed all of his donations. I don't think that Mann has done it. I was just on Mann's website yesterday. I didn't see anything like that, which is a level of transparency that I think that a lot of people will be looking for. Why isn't David Mann doing that?
People really care about that.
Wait.
I don't think
you just really brought it up, though. How could you not care about it?
I brought up the fact that he co-mingled campaign finance funds.
Yeah, you brought up campaign finance funds and corruption and all that kind of stuff. So how could you not care about transparency in the mayor's office, in the mayor's race?
I'm not following you.
Okay. Well, let me talk a little slower. You just brought up the fact that AFTAB Pureval, in your opinion, has some issues with transparency and campaign financing, correct?
That's not my opinion.
I'm just saying you brought the issue up, though, right?
I brought the issue up that he commingled campaign funds.
Right.
Yes,
so
I did.
Right. So then what I'm saying is, since that's an issue for you, let's take your issue and bring it up to date to the current mayoral race between AFTAB and David Mann. So then I made the point that between the two of them, when it comes to transparency and campaign finance reporting right here, right now, AFTAB is putting all of his donations on his website, and David Mann is not.
Okay. So why is that relevant?
So it sounds to me like you should be calling David Mann and asking him to do what AFTAB is doing, has already done, and be as transparent and put all his donations on his website so we can see who's funding his campaign.
I don't think that's even relevant. Me personally, I got David Mann's campaign finance reports. I have them. Okay, so that's not a concern for me. If that's a concern for you, you should call him out and ask him to do that. I know how to
bring it up. You did.
Okay, I didn't bring up the fact about people putting their campaign finance reports on websites. You did that. I brought up the fact that AFTAB co-mingled. This is documented that he co-mingled campaign funds.
Yeah, but
and I was just shocked that they didn't come up
old
during
ish
the
that's
debate.
already been settled. So what? I'm trying to update your observation and make it relevant and bring it into a context that matters today, which is the mayor's race. Don't nobody give a damn about what happened in 2018. What we care about what's happening right here, right now. That's why I brought that up, brother. You talking about old-ish. I'm talking about what's happening right now.
I'm not talking about old stuff, bro. It's not, dog. Number one, it's not old. And two, today,
when did it happen?
Them commingling.
When did it happen?
2018.
That's old shit. That's old shit. Nobody cares about
it. Oh, that's old. Okay. Nobody cares about it. You don't care about it.
It's 3 years ago, bro. It's before the damn pandemic.
Man.
It's 3 years before the pandemic, and it's all been settled. It's old news. You keep holding on to it. I'm trying to talk about what's relevant today. So what's relevant today is who is contributing to the campaigns today, not 2018. Nobody cares about that.
Bro, if we're gonna, all right, so if you want to play that game about if that's
It's not a
old
game.
ish, all right, then do both these people's records matter overall? Does it only matter what they're doing yesterday? Does it matter what their records are? David Mann got a 26-year record on city council. You know what I'm saying? Anybody
Really?
can go look at what he's done, what he's voted for, all that. Same thing with AFTAP. You can go look what he did at the clerk of court's office. I mean, this is easy stuff.
You can also
bro.
go on
Just
AFTAP's
conflating
website
issues.
right now and see who's contributed to his campaign. You can't do that with David Mann.
So why does that matter?
It's called
Tell me why that
transparency. What do you mean? Why does it matter?
Putting your campaign first. Look, he's overcompensating for his mistake that he's made when he ran in 2018. That's all this is. These campaign finance reports are public records already. I can send it to you. You can get to the Board of Elections and grab these at 8 o'clock. You can email them.
But most voters are not going to go through all of that. Having it on your website makes it easier for everyday, hardworking people that's got stuff going on. Anybody got time for all that? So the candidates themselves should make it as easy as possible. AFTAB did that. David Mann has not. What is he hiding? I don't know.
What is he hiding? That's so funny. These are public records. Nobody hiding nothing, Nathan. AFTAB's overcompensating, saying I'm transparent. You know, after the last race he was in, he got slaughtered because he was commingling funds. So he's overcompensating. You don't get no kudos for overcompensating because you made a mistake. You don't get no kudos for that.
Yeah, but we're supposed to
That's
give
all I'm
David Mann
saying.
kudos for not even making an attempt to be transparent. Okay, that makes sense.
I didn't say give David Mann kudos for that.
Sounds like
you
it's what
putting
you're saying.
words in my mouth.
It sounds like
Now, what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is AFTAB has a record of corrupt behavior regarding campaign finance. Period. Now you can take that and twist it however you want, but those are the facts. David Mann has never had such a problem. You know what I'm saying?
I
understand the biggest problem.
What are you talking about? What history of corrupt behavior as it relates to campaign finance reporting? What are you talking about?
All right. So AFTAB Puraval basically used his campaign finance from the clerk's office to pay for congressional
you still on that dumb shit, man? You still on that? I thought
See,
we already settled this, bro. I thought we settled this already.
That's his. No,
And,
look, he's running for mayor.
AFTAB's mama, his mama gave him some money for one campaign, and he used it for another campaign. And you're saying that's corruption?
Absolutely.
Oh, get out.
The Ohio Elections Commission. The Ohio Elections Commission said it was corruption.
Knock
he
it
got
off.
fined for that.
Knock it off, man. Nobody cares about that. That's small. When we talking about corruption, we thinking about somebody is trading money for votes or something like that. Like what's been alleged with members of city council. That's a clerical mistake. That's a clerical mistake. Now, if those are the rules,
spending money is a clerical mistake.
That's a clerical mistake. Now, if those are the rules and you're a politician, I believe you should abide by the rules. So I think they smacked him the hand on the wrist or something like that because it was relatively minor. But you acting like this is some big time FBI case. Please stop, sir.
Bro,
you might get that off somewhere else, but you talking to me. I know what happened already. You can't get that off here.
I'm talking to you. You right. I'm talking.
Yeah, you know who you talking to. I already know what happened already. I thought you had something more than that, man. You talking about a clerical mistake? His mama gave him some money. Let me get this straight. His mama gave him some money, but his mother wasn't even the one who brought the lawsuit. It was an agent for Coast. So stop it.
Why does that matter?
What you mean, why does it matter? Who you think you're talking to? What you mean, why does it matter?
Come on, man.
What you mean, why does it matter? It tells you the motivation of what it was already all about. It was politically motivated. And here you are 3 years later. I hate gullible black men. I hate it when you do this.
Oh, my goodness.
I hate it when you do this, bro. 3 years later, you still talking about this nonsense? Stop it.
That's his record,
we're
bro.
Not supposed
That's
to
his
talk.
record.
So let me get it straight. We're supposed to talk about a clerical error about some money that AFTAB's mama gave him, literally his biological mother. But we're not supposed to talk about who's contributing to mayoral candidates today. Come on, Cat.
It's public,
you got to do better, man.
You look, nah, bro. See, what you're trying to do is you're trying to be real slick and greasy, but you're missing the mark. What's happening is David Mann has never even been in a situation like commingling campaign funds. Okay, that's campaign finance violation.
Mhm.
And what I'm saying to you, bro, is that is his record. If we're going to look at these two candidates, right, we have to evaluate them by their record. We have to evaluate them by that. That's what we have to go on. And to say that, oh, well, this thing in 2018 don't matter, but, you know, everything else he's done in the clerk's office doesn't matter.
The inquiry didn't even bring it up because it don't matter.
Okay. But so was the inquiry about the fact that AFTAB's ran for 4 offices in 5 years? Does that matter?
No, not to me. No, I don't care how many.
Okay, so I'm saying, so shit matters to you in one way, but it don't in the other way.
I'm just saying, why should I care about how many races he ran in 4 or 5 years? All I care about is where you are now and what you're doing right now. I wouldn't matter if it was AFTAB or David Mann. I don't care about that.
Man, when you about to hire people at a job and you got resumes in front of you and you got questions about their resumes, all that shit matters, bro. They asking for people to hire them to be the mayor. Both of them are. So they both got resumes.
Okay.
They both and people have questions about the resumes. So I'm not saying anything out of the way. I'm saying that's part of his resume. He has to deal with that. But if you care about that or not, okay. But there's some people out here who care about that, especially given the climate down here.
There's some people that care about what exactly now? What are you saying people care about? There's some people that care about what exactly?
There are some people who care about people's resumes, and people have questions about people's resumes.
But it depends on what's on the resume. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what a part of the resume are we talking about?
The corruption part.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's like, all right, you want me to be the mayor? All right, this corruption issue has been an issue for the last term of council. How do you plan on leading on that? Well, AFTAB's not in a position to lead on that because he's had his own campaign finance violation.
You're missing the point.
That's what I'm saying to you.
You're missing the point. That's the whole reason why AFTAB said that's the whole. When that question came up, did you watch the debate?
I did.
Okay, so when that question came up, the way that AFTAB answered the question, he said, "Well, I believe in transparency." You say that's if I become mayor, that's what I'm going to push for. Speaking of which, I believe in transparency right now. That's why you can go to my website and I'm transparently showing you who's donated to my campaign. That all makes sense.
That's an overcompensation, bro. Again, because he made that mistake 3 years ago.
It's either an overcompensation or is somebody who is doing what they say they're going to do. And they're doing it right now. I don't know why all of this stuff isn't open to the public, quite honestly. I mean, we should be able to go on a website and within a week or so, whenever a candidate or council person gets a donation, we should be able to read because that'll give us some idea as to who's trying to influence them. I think that's hella informative information, but that's just me.
I agree that the campaign finance reports are informative information. Again, I've looked at both of their campaign finance reports.
So you should call your boy David Mann and tell him to put his campaign finance reports on his websites the way AFTAB did and demonstrate demonstrate leadership and demonstrate transparency. How hard is it?
Dog, look, the reality is this. It ain't that important. AFTAB, again, is overcompensating, trying to say, look, I'm transparent.
You just said it was important, man. You're talking in circles, bro.
No. What I said was important is the fact of knowing who's donating. You can get this information for the Board of Elections in less than 5 minutes, bro. I did it myself. So to say that, I'll put it on the website, therefore I'm transparent, is bullshit. That's not what this is about. And then, speaking of which, yesterday you told me you was gonna read AFTAB's 50 pages. I haven't seen any substance. Did you see any substance? If you see any substance, let me know what the substance is.
I have not begun to read it. I had other things going on last night, but what I went to David Mann's website and again, David Mann has he's got one sheet with about 8 or 9 bullet points. That's his whole plan on his website. One page, 8 or 9 bullet points, what amounts to maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs. AFTAB has 4 downloadable PDFs, and I think each of them are 8 to 9, 12 pages each. I mean, just off the top, you could tell that somebody spent more time on it than somebody else did. People can glean and make that whatever they wanted to make. So,
I agree with you on that. People should read both of them.
I'm just saying, well, one of them is a real quick read. The other one's going to take you a little bit more time. So somebody put more effort into it than the other person did. And that's real.
Or somebody just use more, or somebody just use more words. Or somebody just use more words. Because, you can have people can make a point in a sentence or two. And you have some folks who need 2 or 3 pages to make the same point. So just because you use more words don't mean you have a better plan, or if you even have a plan at all. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I watched the debate.
I think that
Go
when you're an elected official and you're trying to sell your ideas, you should use as many words as possible as it will take to convey what it is. And I think that you know, I think on some levels, more words, if you want to reduce it to that, is a reflection to more time and energy and give a damn about what you're trying to put out there to the people. And there's no doubt about that. You can say it's more words or whatever, but it's just more time and energy, more give a damn. Period.
I don't know if it's more give a damn. It may be more. What's the word I'm looking for? It could be more fluff. More fluff. That's how I would define it. AFTAB gave more fluff on his website.
But you haven't even gone to both websites though. So here you are talking about something you don't know what you're talking about.
the whole time. Come on, bro. No, I've done more homework than you have. I've downloaded his PDFs. I read all the PDFs. And this was like a month ago I read that shit. And I read David Bann's website. Look, the fact of the matter is
I don't believe that one bit.
You don't believe that? Bro,
you might have within the last 24 hours, but when we had our conversation yesterday, you certainly hadn't gone to David Bann's website.
I've been to it since, bro, in the last 24 hours.
I can tell.
David Bann. Okay, well, the reality is this. Just because you use a whole bunch of words, or more fluff, don't mean that you got more substance. And so far,
in most cases, it does.
Career,
give me an example when it doesn't. In most cases, it does.
All right, what you want to say that again? I want to say
you said just because you use more words don't mean you have more substance. And what I'm telling you, in this case, it does. In this scenario, and we're talking about candidates trying to convey their ideas. If you give me somebody that's got their ideas in like 8 bullet points and 4 paragraphs, and you give me somebody that spent like 12 pages per issue, in most cases, one person's gonna have more substance than the other person. Period. Across the board.
You haven't even read it, so read it.
I've read enough of it. I read all of what David Bann had to say because it was very easy. It's 8 bullet points.
Right, because this ain't difficult, bro. It's not hard.
No, this is difficult.
AFTAB's trying too hard.
No, this is difficult. The issues of Cincinnati are difficult. They are worth more than 8 bullet points. If you just talk about any one issue, it's a little bit more difficult than just that. I'm sorry, it is.
All right, look. You say you read some of it. Have you read AFTAB's affordable housing plan?
I've read through it.
Okay, you read through that. So you tell me what he plans to do for affordable housing.
I mean, I can't recite it for you word for word.
I'm not asking word for word. Give me a general synopsis, bro. If you
I don't want to give you no damn. Now you're giving me work. I give the work out. I'm not doing all of that.
You said you were going to do the work.
I'm not doing all of that. Right. I got a general idea about it. I'm not going to give you a summation of what he has to say. I'm not doing all of that.
You have a general idea of who you are.
Yeah, I got a general idea of what he's doing with it. But in terms of specifics, like I told you, I haven't read every single detail, but I'm not doing all of that. I'm not going to give you no damn general synopsis of what he said. It's on his website. That's why it's there. People can check it out there. I've had AFTAB on. He talked about it. We got a general sense of what it is.
The AFTAB's off fluff. He's a shiny new toy. I get it. Some people are impressed by that. I'm not. But before I go, you see the Republicans endorsed issue 3, right?
Who now what?
The Republicans endorsed issue 3.
They endorsed issue 3. Okay, no, I didn't see that.
Yeah. It's they got an article out for you. Maybe you want to check it out and just skim through the top. I think Alex T got a quote in there and some other folks, but I think it's going to be a dogfight for issue 3 because look, somebody said something important too. You can't leave it to the politicians to clean up their own backyard. The voters got to do that. So, I mean, all in all, I'm going to vote for issue 3 just because
that's the anti-corruption.
Nobody else has a plan to clean that shit up. Yes, anti-corruption. Yes.
I know the charter committee they decided not to endorse it.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up. You know why? Because Derek Dansby. You had him on, right? I remember he saying they'll put out something soon. Look, Derek Dansby, and I hope he's listening, is in over his head because his response to the press.
Derek Dansby?
I'll say Mr. Dansby, okay? So we can keep it clean because
the man's name is Derek. Simple as that.
Okay, Mr. Dansby, all right? Charter Committee President Dansby is in over his head because his response was tone deaf. He said there was no transparency, nobody went to the voters. Bruh. The voters were the people who signed the petition to get it on the ballot. So how can he, in good conscience, say that there was no transparency behind it? Because they didn't come ask him about it. Like, to me, it's like he's already showing that he is a neophyte in this game because he don't even know how to handle the press. He don't even know how to communicate. Like, you can't sit here and tell me the voters weren't engaged and this wasn't a transparent process when voters signed a petition and got it on the ballot. I mean, the charter committee, like, the leadership, Matt Woods is a good guy. Mr. Dansby, I don't know him, but as of right now, he ain't showing the chopped up for the job, bro. So, hey, he just need to get his weight up. But I'm voting for issue 3 because, hey, you can't depend on these politicians to clean up their own mess. The voters got to do it. Now, I'm going to holler at you, comrade, but yeah, after that, bro, all fluff, no substance, you know, it's you know, he needs to go run for mayor of Tibet. Bye.
Is that mayor of Tibet? Is that what you said? Mayor of Tibet. Oh my God, my work is just getting started. Oh dear Lord. It's just so funny with the things that people say that they think they can get to you. So interesting. Sorry about that. A little OCD there. I mean, okay, whatever, man. I don't give a damn who you vote for. Talking to Black Russia, vote for whoever you want to vote for, man. But I'm gonna deal with the facts and common sense. I'm gonna stand up for the facts and common sense every day, all day. And the fact remains that, you know, the voters got a big decision to make. And I think it is a huge difference between the two of them. As I watched that debate, it became clear to me that, and this is just my opinion about it, that, you know, David Mann, almost every question is, we're doing it already. We're doing it already. We're addressing this already. We're already doing it. We're already doing it. We got that. We got a plan. We've handled this. We've done this for minority businesses. And I don't think that matches the viewpoint of the electorate. I think for me, I'm looking at, yeah, we've gone a long way, perhaps in some areas, but we got a long way to go. I'm looking for some change agents. And again, some of the responses I got from David Mann that night in the Inquirer's forum was he's happy with the status quo. Everything's cool. Everything's working well. We got everything solved. We've already helped out minority businesses. We already dealt with the equity issue. That's what he kept saying over and over and over again. So, you know, if you think so it comes down to this, I guess. If you feel like the status quo was good enough, cool. You vote for David Mann. If you feel like the status quo is not good enough, then vote for Avtab Purival. I think it comes, you know, that's straight from David Mann's mouth himself. Simple as that. For me, I'm not happy with the status quo, but we shall see. And then this whole stuff about, like, literally Avtab's biological mother. When I remember him bringing this up years ago, and I'm like, really? I did a little digging. I'm like digging into the story. I'm like, what? His mama, Avtab's mother, gave him some money for a campaign. The way that Ohio election campaign or finance laws work is like, you know, you can, again, I might get this wrong, so people political set me straight, but like, you can get money for certain races. And then if you decide to run in another race, you can use that money for another race. But there's certain races that you can run for in Ohio that you can't use that money for. And I can't remember how it works. Maybe if you're running for the county ride race, you can use that money. If you're running for Congress, you can use that money. You can't use that money for county races, but if you got money for county races and it's left over, you can't use it for congressional races, something like that. I think that's right. And he did that, which, I mean, that's not the same as what has been alleged from some city council members where they're giving up, like, it's like quid pro quo. To me, that's more of like a clerical error right there. And I think he admitted it, and the Ohio Ethics Commission or whoever gave him a slap on the wrist. I'm like, okay. But folks like Black Russia are steady trying to connect that to, you know, the scandals that are happening at the State House and what's happening in Cincinnati. And it ain't the same, bro. You might be able to get that off somewhere else with some people who are lesser in the know, but you can't get that off here with me here in the choppers. We just can't go for that. You know, we're going to talk about it. Let's keep it real all the way around. So we shall see what happens. We shall see what happens. Good morning to you. 513-873-7134. Politically Petty Podcast Show writes, the level of ignorance and lack of understanding of how government works is amazing. He also says something about what I said about Drop. I stand by what I said about Drop. I don't think Drop gives a damn about the Haitian people whatsoever. It's just something else for him to criticize the Biden administration about. And if I'm wrong about that, it's his fault. It's his fault for his outlandish and outrageous takes over the years that has led me to this belief system about him. It is what it is. And two things can be true at the same time. I fully acknowledge that, this is an issue, a humanitarian issue, and it looks bad on the United States in general, Western powers in general, and right now the Biden administration. And it might cost them. It might cost them. And if it does, it does. That's on them. Do better, Biden administration. Simple as that. It said Biden family owned slaves. Keisha writes, how did they get to the border? They really chose Texas over Florida? Clarence writes, I blame Joe Biden policy. Yeah, that's my question for you. Because, do you blame Joe Biden? I think a lot of people are going to blame Joe Biden. It's the same thing. They blame Trump. When Trump was in office, that's the way it goes. You locking up kids in cages and you're the president, you're going to get blamed. You wrangling human people like they cattle and you're the president, you're going to get blamed. Democrat, Republican, Independent, makes no difference. It is what it is. Sarai writes, you know what it's called? It's called discrimination. Well, good morning to you. Rilo writes, preach, Brother Nate. Good morning to you. Or as I told you, coming up at 8:30 a.m., I'm scheduled to speak with Steve Gooden. Now, Steve Gooden is a white male Republican. He is currently on city council. He was appointed to replace Jeff Pastor, and he wants your vote. And he was nice enough to agree to come on the show this morning. I think he's backstage. Now I think I can see him backstage. Steve, can you hear me? Okay, good. So with no further ado, let's bring Steve into the show. Hey, Steve, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for getting up early on a Thursday and spending some time with us.
It's my honor. Thank you very much for having me.
Most def. Well, let's get straight to it. As I said right there, you're currently on city council. You were appointed to replace Jeff Pastor. I know you're seeking re-election. This is our first time, talking on the show or meeting virtually. Again, thank you so much for your time. Just so you know, this room is primarily a lot of people in Cincinnati, primarily a lot of good people. These are not just voters. These are influencers, people that influence other folks and people who are engaged in the political system here on all different levels in the city, just so you know. A lot of business owners, a lot of good, smart, intelligent people, just to give you a heads up on that. But, Steve, tell us who you are. I don't know anything about you, man. Well, tell us who you are. Are you from Cincinnati, born and raised? If so, where'd you go to high school?
Well, I'll lay it all out for you here. Well, first, thank you, though, for having me on. I mean, you don't have to tell me about influencers on this program. I'll tell you, I'm familiar with the show. Well aware of it, and what you've done here is fantastic. I mean, you've made this a must stop, I think, for any candidate or for anybody who's concerned about public policy. So, I mean, this is just one of those places you got to go. So I thank you and I salute you for what you're doing. And these are very open conversations. These are authentic conversations. And unlike when I go on one of these radio shows on the AM radio or anything of that nature, where you're trying to cram a lot of ideas into like a 10-minute segment, you let the segment go. I love just love what you do. For me, my name is Steve Gooden. I've lived in Cincinnati most of my adult life. When I was very young, though, my dad did get a job up in the Dayton area. He was a UAW auto worker. So I did go to high school up in the Springfield, Dayton area. Came back down this way to go to college at Miami University back in 1988, and then went on to law school at UC, and have lived here, all my adult life, except for some breaks for military service and Peace Corps service and things of that nature. Love this city. Raised my children here in the city. Still got one that's 9 years old that trying to get through school. Live in the Clifton neighborhood. Spent about 10 years in Northside. Lived there all through the 90s and into the 2000s. I also lived downtown for a period of time. So, know the city well, love the city. Worked in the prosecutor's office, my first job out of law school, for Joe Dieters, Mike Allen, then Joe Dieters again when he came back. So I really learned a lot about law enforcement from that standpoint. But then I also have a different perspective. Left the prosecutor's office and I did a lot of work for the public defender's office, and then ultimately was on the public defender's commission for 10 years, helping oversee that office and oversee the appointments and making sure that folks who couldn't afford a quality defense got a quality defense. And we really made a lot of headway there. while I was doing all that, I also worked behind the scenes at City Hall for many, many years, and worked on the pension plan and tried to reform the pension plan so that it could survive, and worked on various other issues with their budget and so forth. So I've got a pretty deep background in municipal finance, which is primarily the reason why I think I was chosen by the judge in this case, when Jeff Pastor, who I know well, was indicted and charged with the crimes that he was charged with. So I've taken a very, very down the middle, nonpartisan approach. If you go back and look at our charter, it doesn't say you're supposed to be Democrat or Republican. It says these are nonpartisan positions. And I know partisan politics creeps in at City Hall a lot. I think that's part of the problem on both sides, frankly. A lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats try to bring in national political issues there. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get us focused on improving our policing, improving our streets, making our neighborhoods safer and better, improving basic services, trying to get our roads repaired, and trying to clean up some of the stuff at City Hall. We do have a mess there, particularly in the way we handle economic development and this kind of what they call a culture of corruption that the U.S. Attorney called, and I think that's a fair point. And we've got a lot to clean up there, and I'm happy to talk about any of it in detail. But my main focus is neighborhoods. Because like I said, I've been in the neighborhoods. I've worked on the community councils before. I know how frustrating it can be, when the city isn't responsive. And I mean, frankly, we've done a great job building up our downtown and some of the neighborhoods around our downtown. But there's a lot of neighborhoods that are really, really suffering. I spent a lot of time in East Westwood and Avondale, in our 3 Price Hills, trying to figure out what their needs are and what we can do to try to lift up all these neighborhoods. We got a lot of interest from a lot of young folks who want to move into the city. We need them in the city. We need the tax base. I'm happy to talk about that because our tax base is in jeopardy. But we got to focus on these neighborhoods and making sure they get what they need.
Oh, sorry about that. Hey, Steve, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
great. It's on me, man. I do this once per show where I mute myself and everybody laughs at me. But so my question is, so you were appointed to replace Jeff Pastor, right?
Yes, sir.
So was that because you had already let your interest be known that you were interested in running for city council? So what I guess I'm asking you is, had you not been appointed, would you be running for city council anyway?
Yes, in all likelihood. I mean, I had a real interest in it and had for some time. Like I said, I had felt that there was a certain kind of approach that just wasn't being taken at City Hall. I'd sat there, many, many times. I'd gone into City Council to testify before council on a variety of matters. And I just felt a lot of the council members weren't engaged. They're sitting there playing on their phones. They weren't listening to me. And I really did feel that a lot of folks were trying to use it as some sort of stepping stone to higher political office. And that's fine. That's perfectly legal. It's appropriate for a lot of folks. But back when the city I thought was run better, you had folks like me who kept their day jobs and who, approached it as a public service and something that they did for a few years, did what they could for the community, brought their skills to it, and then stepped aside. And that's really, really what I wanted to do. And I wanted to try to bring that kind of, that attitude back a bit.
Okay. So you say you spent some time in the prosecutor's office, right? How much time were you there?
I was there for 5 years. I started out in the juvenile division, which is where everybody used to have to start out. We worked on custody matters and then did delinquency matters, and then I went all the way up to the felony division. And I'll tell and handle murder cases, drug cases. Tried about 40 or 50 cases to juries during that period of time. It was an interesting time. I was also there during the time when the collaborative was passed. So, we're very much aware of some of the issues around policing, things that had to change. And it was, like I said, it was a fascinating time. I was able to see firsthand, kind of the old ways, the new ways that were coming on, and sort of thanks to my time in the public defender's office, also now know that a fair amount about what still needs to happen there. I mean, the collaborative, business isn't over, but we've learned a lot. I mean, it was a true education there. I loved the work, but I also approached it with open eyes and saw the things that needed to be changed as well.
Yeah. So you got the Republican endorsement. Is that correct?
I did barely, but yes.
Okay.
So yes.
You said barely. So explain that to me. I know you were endorsed by the charter committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
And also okay. So
Yes,
do you identify as a charter or a Republican, or what's your political affiliation? How do you identify yourself?
Well, primarily in this race, I see myself as a charter, right? I mean, those are the values that we're trying to bring forward here, which is really all about good government and collaboration. And the charter party, has an incredible history, of promoting diversity at City Hall, whether it be, with Marion Spencer, Ted Berry, Christopher Smitherman. I mean, it really has been a great building block for the community. But I've taken a lot of heat, both from the Republican Party, from fellow, Republicans, and from other folks about why I took that endorsement. I mean, I was a very vocal anti-Trumper. I did not support Trump in either election. I spoke out very strongly at January 6th with the mess at the nation's capital last year. And that really, ruffled a lot of feathers on that side. So I didn't know if they were going to endorse me or not. And in fact, I briefly, considered whether it even made sense to accept the endorsement. But sort of from my point of view, there are still a lot of folks of goodwill and good faith in that party. And I think some people have to step up and, and show that there is another path forward. We really need two parties in this country. We need two functioning parties. And the way I've always been taught was that the value of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party was that they took the extremes on both sides and produced something, two more sensible, moderate choices for the American people every time. And the Republican Party failed at that, in my view, during the Trump year. They let the extreme voices in. And both parties have extreme voices at the fringes. But that, that said, I just think there's some value in having my voice heard there, and I'm happy they endorsed me. There's some folks who I know are not happy about that, but my point of view is that really we need those kinds of voices if the Republican Party is ever going to move past its current moment, which in my view, is really, really bad. It's in danger of totally self-imploding because of Trump and all the voices and people that he let in.
So having said all that, how do you see the value in the Republican endorsement? What is it about the Republican endorsement that you still have value in?
Well, candidly, it may not have any value. It may, it may not have any. It may actually hurt me in the election, to be perfectly honest. In my view, I'm somebody who was very moved as a very young man. When I was in college, I met a guy named Jack Kemp. Who was a Republican congressman from New York. He played in the NFL. His emphasis was on housing issues and on trying to bring kind of private capital and capitalist solutions to neighborhoods and lifting up other neighborhoods. He ended up being the HUD secretary for a long period of time. And I was kind of moved by his vision, which was kind of a pro-capitalist vision to combat poverty. And that really did have a base in the Republican Party, but that kind of vision seems to have gone away. And I don't think the Republican Party, certainly on a national level, really speaks to cities anymore. And when they do, they talk about corruption and crime, and they kind of try to antagonize people in a way and fire up their base, and that's not helpful. And I want to kind of go back to that original vision that Jack Kemp had. He passed away unfortunately many years ago. But to kind of bring that idea back of he used to call it the opportunity society. We want to try to bring opportunity to neighborhoods. We want to try to bring jobs to neighborhoods. We want to try to bring better public transit to neighborhoods, because 84% of people who are riding a bus at any given time are going to a job. And those are the sorts of things that I want to focus on, because this community is still split. I mean, I don't need to tell anybody on this podcast. I mean, we're still split. We're still a very segregated community. We're segregated by race. We're segregated by income. And we have, great inequality in this community, where we have, certain neighborhoods that are doing very, very well, and a downtown that's doing very, very well, and parts of the city where folks just simply can't get to the jobs that we have. And that's one of the things that kind of kills me when I hear about, just this morning, Amazon announced this massive expansion over in northern Kentucky, and all these new jobs that pay very well. but we have large numbers of our citizens who can't get there. So that's one of the reasons why I think we have to be creative and really focus on issues like public transit, roadworks, and things of that nature to try to connect people to the jobs that are coming in here, and to give people kind of a hand up. I mean, that's what I spend a lot of time, out in a lot of different neighborhoods where folks are kind of generally surprised to see me, and everyone's asking for a hand up. No one's asking for a handout. And I think folks need to understand it. And that, to me, is the old Republican philosophy that's kind of fallen out of favor, that I think really could have a moment here.
So earlier you told us that you voted for Trump, even though I didn't ask. So
No,
I think
I did not vote for Trump.
you told us that you didn't vote for Trump,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I didn't ask the question, but somebody in the chop shop wants to know: did you vote for Joe Dieters?
I did vote for Joe Dieters, and I'll tell you why. And I know some folks, are both ways on Joe Dieters. I know Joe personally. I worked for Joe. And I'll tell you, the main reason that I stepped up for him was he showed, I thought, tremendous political courage when he indicted Ray Tenzing. That was not an easy thing for him to do. I actually spent some time with him the day that the grand jury came back with the indictment. And, that was something he took a tremendous amount of flack from different police groups and police unions and other folks. But he truly believed, and he lost the trial. The trial, he ultimately was acquitted. But he truly believed in his heart that was a bad shooting, as do I think anybody who has any kind of law enforcement background who watched that. And he thought it was important for the community, at a minimum, to bring the charges and to bring a murder charge. And for someone with his background and where he started out, in law enforcement, to do that, I thought that showed tremendous courage. I've worked with Fanon Rucker, who was his opponent. He was a great judge. And I hope he runs again. I mean, I think he would do a fine job as prosecutor. But I did support Joe in that race because I really think he is a person who has shown over the years some real discretion, and he has been willing to push back in some ways that he shouldn't, against some bad things.
Yeah, it's interesting you put it that way because, and again, you got a personal relationship with him. I don't. Just as a citizen on the outside looking in, I mean, I thought charging Ray Tenzing was the easiest thing in the world to do because it was the right thing to do. I don't give people credit for the easy things. I mean, to me, that was very, very easy. And you said, and I can understand police organizations and groups out there, giving him some issue about it. But when you're the prosecutor, man, your job is bigger than all that, right? Your job is to serve justice. The other thing is, I just felt like, since you brought it, I just felt like, and I'm no lawyer, I just felt like Joe and his team did a terrible job. I know some of those folks might be some of your colleagues. I thought they did a terrible job at that prosecution. It was like a keystone prosecution, in my opinion. It really touches the nerve when you bring that up. But
well, I know, and I get that it certainly would. I mean, I really do. And look, and I know there's a lot of folks who, have Monday morning quarterbacked that trial, and I did too. There's things that they did in that trial that made me scratch my head as well. But I'll tell you, that was the single most thing. I just know in his world, with the police unions and folks that had supported him throughout his career, he caught a world of grief over that. And I'm with you. It was the right thing to do, and I don't think he really hesitated about doing it. But it was something where his whole base, not his whole base of support, but significant parts of his base of support were very, very upset with him about it. And you're right. You got to do the right thing. He did the right thing, and I applaud him for it. But I also think day to day that office does better than it gets credit for in terms of diversion, and in terms of particularly with the drug court and other things, which are not perfect, but they do. They have developed a more compassionate sense, particularly on drug possession type things, than certainly 20 years ago when I was there. That they've really, I think, grown and shown some progress.
So let's jump into, your plans for the city and your vision. So the Women's Fund, I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Maybe you are. The Women's Fund recently did a study. They've been doing this over several years. They did a study on the racial wealth gap in particular as it relates to Black females. And what they found, among other things, is that, of any demographic in Cincinnati, Black women have the highest concentration of folks who are making less than $15 an hour. And what they also found is that, when you factor in education levels, that's still true. And so my question speaks to the racial wealth gap in Cincinnati. You
Right.
know, do you believe there's a racial wealth gap in Cincinnati? One. And if two, do you have a plan to address it?
Yes, and well, first, I absolutely believe that there's a racial wealth gap in Cincinnati. I'm very, very familiar with the work of the Women's Fund. My ex sister-in-law actually runs the Women's Fund, so we've spent a lot of time, over for many, many years. She shared with me, their studies and the work that they do, and sort of the backbone work they do in this area, and I think that's absolutely right. I think the primary things that we can do as a city to combat that and to particularly help women of color are number one, we got to provide more access to stable, and in some cases, many cases, subsidized affordable housing, so that folks don't just totally see their income eaten up on apartments and so forth. While they're trying to get themselves into a better place, and that's something that has been a tremendous focus of ours, particularly since this, issue three, the original issue three last spring, which I think was probably the wrong approach on affordable housing, and I think kind of set us back a little bit. But I don't think you can talk about improving this inequality or this wealth gap without talking about housing, and that's a much bigger conversation. I'm happy to go there as long as you, or as deep as you want. The other thing is making sure that we're providing the proper educational opportunities. And the third thing, which is something my colleague Greg Landsman really feels strongly about, and he's right, is improving access to subsidized childcare. We also, a lot of women, particularly women of color, they don't have access to the kinds of childcare that they need, and childcare can hold folks back economically. And we have to do more there, and we did set some money aside there, and we're very eager to see what the Biden administration does. They have this bill that they're calling a human infrastructure bill that may give money to some of the cities so that we can provide some increased child care opportunities. So I think that's important. Nate, I think you're on mute again, sir.
Sorry about that. I keep doing
That's
it.
okay. Sorry.
So this question, I'm trying to get to a sense of like how you view the issues that are in particular, an issue with Black Cincinnati and African Americans that live in this city. So you tell me this, Steve. When you look at Cincinnati, Black folks make up anywhere between 42 to 45%.
Right.
Would you agree that Black Cincinnatians find themselves in a predicament that took a unique route? Would you agree with that?
I'm sorry. In terms of
if you look at some of the differences between white Cincinnati and Black Cincinnati, whether that be wealth building, whether that be home ownership, whether it be across the board, would you agree that the route that got us to this point was particular and unique? Now, of course, it goes back to racism and slavery and things like that, and still dealing with those issues today. Would you agree with that?
I do. I mean, look, I'm not one of these people that wants to sit here and argue about, critical race theory and whether or not that makes any kind of, what we can and can't talk about. We have a terrible history in this country in terms of how we've treated each other, particularly in how, how I guess our what was formerly the white majority, which I think is changing demographically, our census shows that, but what was formerly the white majority and how it treated folks of color was terrible. Cincinnati is one of the worst, in the country in terms of segregation. It was the 8th most segregated city in the country as of last year. I mean, it's absolutely a problem, and we were joking about this at City Hall yesterday. I mean, it's not a funny joke. I mean, I guess we were commenting on it. Yesterday was the anniversary of the founding of Cincinnati. It was founded, I think, the original settlement that became Cincinnati was founded in like 1786 on September 21st. And, the thought was, the guy who founded it, it was a probably segregated city right from jump. I mean, that's just how it was. And, we were still on the edge of Indian territory, and, people probably not welcome there from day one. And that's something that we have to be cognizant about, certainly as policymakers. If you just look at the budget numbers and make your vote and walk out of City Hall and call it a day, that's not doing the job. I mean, we have to be very, very aware that we have a history of, of redlining and now sort of de facto segregation, and that property values play a role in that. The public transit plays a role in that. How our highways were built bisected certain communities and plays a role in that. So I think that's something that is, if we're going to sit in a policymaking role in city council, if you ignore that history, you're not doing your job.
All right. So that best gets me to this question, which is, do you have a Black agenda? Do you have a plan that will specifically and with intentionality deal with the unique situations that Black Cincinnatians find themselves in, whether it be about economics or whatever else? And is that something that we can find on your website?
I do, and the way it is on my web, and frankly, I don't have it broken out that way on my website. I mean, my website just breaks things down into economic, goals and different reform things and public safety issues. But I can tell you right now, the stuff that I'm working on that I think speaks directly to those issues. I mean, number one is, we still have work to do on policing. What I hear from the neighborhoods is the same things, which is, their neighborhoods, like East Westwood, Avondale, they want the community policing they were promised in the collaborative agreement. They want the walk the beat policing. They want officers who are invested in the neighborhoods, but at the same time, they don't worry. They don't want their sons or grandchildren injured or killed in a police stop that goes bad over some petty offense. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. And the great cities have figured out ways and can figure out ways to do both. And we've made a lot of progress here. But there's more to do. And I think, we have to continue to work on refreshing a collaborative agreement. And we have to continue on getting, a young and diverse police force who understands these things. And the other thing is, as policymakers, we have to continue to push the state and work on our own municipal code to work on things that involve, that kind of stop these, what I would call unnecessary interactions, between police officers, communities of color on kind of what I would call minor offenses. And that also involves dealing with the marijuana tickets and the civil tickets that they continue to issue. I think we have to absolutely revisit that. I'm also big on what I call restorative justice. I mean, I've worked on expungement clinics for years, and I think the city, we are working on something to preemptively expunge all of the old misdemeanor marijuana arrests, which keep people from jobs and opportunity. But the other stuff that I'm really focused on, which I alluded to before, I'm a big believer that we got to get better and more creative public transit to get folks to where the job centers are. We're having a boom in this area in logistics and delivery, whether it be TQL out in Claremont County or this giant, a growing regional hub over in Northern Kentucky for Amazon. And we have to connect folks to those jobs, and we're not doing a good job of that. And that's incumbent upon us. And that's really, what folks what I'm hearing more than anything, they want that connection. They want that chance. The rest of it too is education. I mean, we are looking at creative ways to try to partner with and work with CPS. I mean, CPS remains, the number one complaint I get is about issues that have to do with Cincinnati public school system, whether it be their transportation or whether it be how individual schools are run. And it is frustrating as a city official, we don't have any real control over that. As we look at other cities like Chicago, they have found ways to partner with the cities better and to let the cities have some more input. And that's something, if I'm returning to council, that we really do want to explore in some way.
Okay, Steve. So it sounds like, and again, I'm on your website. I was on your website early this week as well, because I'm reviewing all political candidates' websites live on the air. In particular, I'm looking for a few things, but in particular, I'm looking for what is your plan for Black Cincinnati? So I asked you about that, and in your answer, I didn't really hear anything specific about that. You start talking about the collaborative and the police and stuff like that. I'm on your website right now. You got 4 pillars here: create safe and vibrant neighborhoods, root out corruption, increase opportunity, lift up all Cincinnatians. I ran through all of it, and in nowhere do I see any mention of Black Cincinnati or any kind of specific plan that would build equity or wealth building or anything like that. I do know that and perhaps you watched it as well, in the Cincinnati Enquirer teamed up with WVXU and the folks over at Xavier University did the first mayoral debate. And when one of the candidates was asked about what his vision was, he talked about, racial equity and closing the racial wealth gap, which I think should be on everybody's radar screen. So again, I'm asking, do you have a specific plan to build wealth in the Black community in
Oh,
Cincinnati, home ownership,
right.
and why doesn't your website reflect any of that?
Well, let me start first. I absolutely do, and I was kind of leading into that. I mean, I think first and foremost, I think we're going to be talking about closing that gap. I mean, we still have to talk about policing. We still have to talk about transit. We still have to talk about the kind of barriers I think to folks getting forward, getting ahead, and getting into the economy. The biggest thing that we're working on is in the affordable housing space. I mean, we've kind of studied what the folks did in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we think we found a way to help build equity and build wealth in the minority communities uh, through affordable housing. We have over 10,000 abandoned properties scattered throughout the city that we think would be very suitable to conversion into affordable housing. So the idea there is to use our HUD loan fund that we have. We've secured about $34 million in funding from the federal government, which should come in the next fiscal year. And the idea is to prioritize minority contractors and small operators and subsidize their ability to purchase those properties and convert them to affordable housing and subsidize their rehabilitation of the properties so that they can then hold on to those and build wealth. And at the end of they have a 15-year deed restriction where they have to keep it affordable. At the end of that 15 years, it's theirs free and clear. And suddenly they're seriously in the property ownership and rental game. And we think there's tremendous opportunity there. And at the same time, we're continuing to work with our labor unions to make sure that we have good apprentice programs and that these apprentice programs, that are used at all of our city stuff, including our waterworks, including our MSD, where there's still, tremendous opportunities coming forward with pipe replacement and our just general replacement of our sewer lines is a huge amount of economic stimulus dollars going into those projects, huge opportunities for jobs. And we're keeping minority focused apprenticeship programs there too. So, I mean, those are two areas where I think we really, as a city, can in the next year or so really help with home ownership, really help people build equity and wealth, and also get folks into the whole union job pipeline with good pensions and with good health care. So those are two immediate things that we can do.
Okay. All right. It's always interesting because when I talk to council candidates, they all say the same things. They all say the same thing, and it sounds good. And they all agree that, Black Cincinnati is in a unique situation. But when I ask them about specific policy ideas that are geared toward that community,
Right.
rarely do they ever have them on their website. But they all say the same thing. Yeah, I got it. And they start telling me these ideas. And I just don't understand, why isn't this something that's not out front more, so that elements of the electorate that care about those kind of things can easily read it and know where you stand from. And I'm reading some of the tone of some of these comments. I'm not sure if you can read it or not. And it's the chop shop. And I think
Right.
I think it's a couple of things you're dealing with, Steve, and I just put everything on the table.
Please do.
You're a white male Republican that used to work in the prosecutor's office. You're relatively new, so people are trying to figure out who you are, and that's where I'm kind of coming with this. We want to figure out who you are. Do you stand for us? Are you an ally? And is there anything in your history that would demonstrate that? Because everybody's going to say the right thing, right? They're going to say the right things. But, history is a great indicator of the future. And so some of these questions coming from the audience or even from me are designed to try to figure out who you are and where you stand for. Because we're living in the age of Trump. You know what I'm saying? We need to know who you are and where you come from and what you might do. And so a lot of, when I go to people's websites, candidates' websites, to me, that's an important space. What's on that website is what they want to reflect and speaks to them. So what's not on the website, it says a lot about them as well. So I'm very sensitive about certain things. Danietta Bailey, who's a lawyer, she wants to know, she says, ask him how many Black people work at the law firm he's from. Is that Graydon Head? Is that correct?
Graydon Head and Ritchie, yes.
She wants to know, ask him what efforts he's made to increase diversity and pathways to partnership there.
I can tell you this. First, I know Miss Bailey. Hello, Miss Bailey. She and I briefly served on a board together at River City Correctional, which is I still think a great facility. It provides a lot of drug rehab and does a lot of great vocational work. It's located over in the over in Camp Washington. It's been there for many years and does great stuff. Second, I have led efforts at Graydon Head to try to make this a more diverse law firm. Law firms here in town, just to be very candid, struggle with minority recruitment. They struggle with that in a powerful way because a lot of our competition is Chicago and New York, and there's also a lot of competition from our local companies. Who are also very aggressive in recruitment in terms of in-house opportunities that are really hard to compete with sometimes in terms of the hours worked. But we do have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. I served on it for many, many years, and we led a lot of recruitment efforts. I can't give you the precise number of attorneys that we have there now, but I believe we have, I think it is 5 or 6 now. I'm not in the office as much, and we also have 4 offices scattered throughout the region at this point. And we have been very, very intentional in our diversity efforts, both among attorneys and staff. We recruit from Howard every year. We go to Howard Law School 2 or 3 times a year, every year. And we have also brought in some new help from UC Law School to kind of lead us in that effort. We are very, very, very intentional about that. In fact, our firm motto is we want to be the most vibrant and inclusive firm in the city. That's on everything we do. It's one of our core values. So we have tried. I will tell you though, we were working from a hole. I mean, Graydon Head and Ritchie has been there since 1874. It was the consummate white shoe law firm. And there's a lot of work that we had to do, to change the culture over time, to put this focus on diversity, and there's more work to go. So, I mean, that's a fair point, but we are working there.
Somebody is asking a question. Iris Rowley is asking a question. Hold on here. She's asking a question about the collaborative. And again, that's just my style. I'm over prepared, but I want to make sure that the audience and the community gets a chance to get questions as well.
No, I understand.
So a couple of questions. She wants to know, how do you feel about, because you talked about the collaborative and your affinity for the collaborative.
Right.
And her question is, how do you feel about Dan Hills and his disdain for the collaborative? And then she has another part to it. Do you think that the city can be collaborative? What do you think about Dan Hill's leadership style? And is it conducive to promoting the values of the collaborative?
I deal with Dan on a pretty regular basis. And I do think sometimes he throws some bombs that I wish he wouldn't throw. And I do think, he is out there. I guess one thing I will say is this. He is the president of a union. He's the president of the police union, the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge number 69. And he sees himself in the role of an advocate. I do wish at times, that his advocacy, kind of took different forms and was more, like I said, less of a bomb throwing style. He's got a lot of members there that really look to him and support him. And I think generally, he has done the right thing by his members. He is a strong and fierce and tough negotiator. He's gotten more money and better benefits for the police rank and file officers. But you're right, when he talks about the collaborative, sometimes he raises good points, in my view, especially in terms of how the delays, which I think he's actually been helpful to us with. But in other times, I've been very disappointed in some of the things he said about the collaborative publicly, and it's not been helpful.
You said he raised some good points about the collaborative. What were those good points?
The issue that I keep coming back to, and I know some folks think this is an issue that doesn't move the needle, but to me it's an important one, is and it's a logistical issue, which is that the police department lacks the ability, the funding and the equipment to quickly turn around body cam footage for the collaborative, for the Citizens Complaint Authority investigations. And it's not the sole reason that there's been a backlog there, but it's certainly contributed to that. And that's something that Mr. Hills has been very open to trying to fix, and has been creative in trying to find the funding to move along. Because, as he correctly notes, his officers, want to have these CCA hearings as well, and they want to have them quickly. They don't want to wait, a year and a half, 2 years to see if they are going to be found at fault. And I think that's a fair point. And it's something that really has, if we truly believe justice delayed is justice denied, and we have the Citizens Complaint Authority, the idea that a citizen and the officer have to wait 18 months to have their case reviewed to see if there was improper police conduct. That's not acceptable. And he's been very open to trying to help on that. So I do applaud him for that.
Did you support the increase in funding for the CCA? What's your
I did.
thoughts on that?
I did. My initial approach was that, I mean, I met with Mr. Davis. I think Gabe Davis, is a great guy, a serious person, and he really understands it. His father was a police officer. He was a district attorney like I was. But so he's seen both sides, and I think he's very sensible and he's very fair. At first, we had some indications from the administration that extra $250,000 would be significant enough, to help reduce the backlog. And I think we always were going to fully fund the annual budget. But the question was, how much extra were we going to allot to help hire extra investigators to eliminate the backlog that has developed over the years, in part because of this issue with the which we alluded to with the body cam footage, but just generally because they're behind. We ultimately increased that to $400,000, which Mr. Davis says should be more than enough to hire some part-time investigators and to add some additional staff to eliminate that. So yes, we did. And we caught some flack for that, from the rank and file police officers, but we truly felt that was the right thing to do. I mean, the CCA is a key part of the collaborative agreement, and it adds transparency to the police department. And if that's what we're going to do, that's what we've committed to. That's what we've got to do. And in this day and age, to me, it's all about transparency going forward. So yes, I was proud to have voted to have fully funded it per its request.
Okay. If you were on city council, would you have voted for the FC Cincinnati deal as you understand it? That was a big issue. With the community benefits agreement, I likely would have. I think that is a tough one because it has transformed the West End, and it is transforming that particular segment of where over the Rhine borders against it. I do think that it is bringing a lot of opportunity to the area. I wasn't crazy about how it was done. But I mean, look, this is a $250 million private investment. I mean, I think the community benefits agreement could have perhaps been a bit different, but they did bring some things there to the area. And what I'm hearing is that FC's honoring its commitment. They're giving priority to hiring West End residents. I know it's a hot topic, but it was just I'm not a big soccer fan. I'm a baseball, football fan. I don't totally understand the game of soccer, to be honest. But I know that they get 24,000 people down there, spending money and investing in our downtown economy, on a very regular basis. They just sold out at an exhibition game the other night. And the thing that kind of haunted me was they had 24,000 people for an exhibition game on Tuesday night. The Reds had 9,000 people in a pennant race. So we do have to acknowledge, in my mind, that economic reality. Whether that was the right spot or not, I don't know. And I don't think it was the first choice for FC, but we are a relatively landlocked city in a lot of ways, and we do have to be creative when we have things, opportunities like that. But it was a tremendous investment, and I do think that they've made good on their promises to the community, from what I can tell. Okay. Let's talk about, so we're talking about development. How did you vote on that Liberty and Elm project in Over the Rhine? Did you vote for that or against it?
I did vote for it, and I'll tell you why. Look, I mean, I in my mind, we have a housing crisis, the likes of which, we've never had, and that we probably never will have. So if you take the millennial generation and the people right behind them, the Gen Y, Gen Z, those sorts of folks, and you put them all together, it's the biggest age cohort the United States has ever seen. It's bigger than the baby boomers. And they're all coming into the housing market roughly at the same time. I mean, you're talking on the high end, they're about 38 years old to 28 years old. And they are driving housing prices up left and right. And they're also driving up rents. And everyone, I've done a deep dive into this, and I've been very, passionate about affordable housing issues. We had a special committee on affordable housing. We've studied what other cities have done. And the answer is that you need more housing at every level to drive the cost down. And that includes market rate housing, that includes the so-called luxury housing, and obviously includes more subsidized housing and deed-restricted subsidized housing. We have to have it across the board. And the way I looked at it was, certain of our neighborhoods, the West End is still 72% deed-restricted subsidized housing. Over the Rhine is still 60% deed restricted subsidized housing. Adding some market rate housing to the mix, also will contribute to the lowering, to supply and demand and to the lowering thereof. And I also thought these folks were pretty honest. The deal, the incentive package that was offered to them was, I think, widely misrepresented in the media. It was not that generous. These folks may still lose money on the deal, as crazy as that might sound. And they did ultimately agree to, as I recall, roughly 17% affordable housing, in the units there. So I mean, they did make some changes, after City Council put their feet to the fire.
Okay, before you voted on it, I thought the number was lower than that in terms of the percentage.
It may have,
of
and
affordable
I'm
unit.
sorry, I don't want to misrepresent.
I
I'm
thought that
trying to
was.
recall. Maybe it was
I thought that when
17%.
City Council voted for it, there was not a single affordable housing unit a part of the deal.
They did add units. I'm sorry, I don't want to. Maybe it was 17 total units out of the 300. I can't recall. It was a relatively small amount, but I know wherever we speak.
So what's your?
They did make some changes at our request.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there. That was very controversial. People were actually downtown protesting.
Oh yeah,
because they felt as if it was the project was headed in the wrong direction. And I talked with a member of City Council prior to that vote, and he told me that he received the information about the deal like last second, like the 11th hour. Is that true to your experience as well?
Well, it is, and that's part of the thing that that I'm very frustrated about there. And I think I know which council member you're talking about. And he's absolutely correct. I mean, I have been a thorn in the side of all sides since I've been to City Hall. Like I said, I want to see more development across the board, whether it be particularly residential housing, whether it be rehabbing these older properties that need to happen, building these larger scale projects, whether they be affordable or market rate. We need them all. We need the tax base. We need the support. But at the same time, I'm not crazy about the way the administration handles this stuff. I mean, they do negotiate these deals without a lot of input from City Council, and to a certain extent, that's legal and proper. But when we're asked to approve them, we ought to have a much more significant lead time. Now, I'm lucky in that. And I deal with economic development issues, in my day job as an attorney, pretty significantly. So I'm happy to, I weigh in on that stuff all the time. I'm a pretty quick study, but to the folks who don't do that on a regular basis, and that isn't their living, I think that puts them in an unfair spot, and they're asked to approve some pretty big deals on very short notice without a lot of time to study it and read about it. And it's not fair to the public. I think if this is one of those deals where if I just read about it in the paper, I would have been against it too. But after I studied it and saw what the real deal was and saw that we really weren't, we weren't giving them anything in cash. We were just agreeing to forego a certain amount of their tax revenue going forward so that the bank would approve their loan. When I saw what the real deal was and their willingness to include some affordable units, it changed my mind. But the public didn't have that benefit. And frankly, that's why I didn't really blame a lot of the folks who were upset about it. I mean, I would have been, if I had known if I had seen what they saw in the newspapers, I would have probably, I agree.
So so you're saying, I'm trying to figure out what your strategy is as it relates to affordable housing. So you said that, you realize that we need affordable housing. There's affordable housing crisis, right? So you agree that there's affordable housing crisis. I hear about an affordable housing crisis in Cincinnati. I never hear about a crisis in luxury apartments. I never hear about that in the city of Cincinnati. I never hear about a crisis of condos. I keep hearing affordable housing. So the backdrop before this vote was there's an affordable housing crisis. You're saying you voted for it because you feel like we need housing on all levels. But what about the issue of the gentrification of OTR? What about the displacement of people that can't afford, luxury or even higher price housing in the OTR, like in particular? That didn't sway. So I'm trying to figure. So what is your strategy moving forward as it relates to affordable housing? Is it just a case by case basis, or do you have a strategy a rule that you will apply to each and every development? And if so, what is that?
I think that's absolutely right, and I do think it's a case by case, and that's one of the reasons why the Liberty and Elm thing I think was so tough for a lot of folks, because I think first that particular development didn't displace anyone. It was a vacant lot. That lot had been vacant for I think 18 years, I was told. So it really wasn't displacing anybody in the short term. And I thought, a lot of folks brought, they kind of made it pay for all of our other sins, in terms of affordable housing and gentrification. But no, I think we have to be very cautious there. I mean, I would also point folks just around the corner at this development that's coming online here in a few months called the Wilkeman that the Model Group did, which is 45%, subsidized affordable units, and it's just around the corner from Liberty and Elm. If you go up to another 2 blocks, there's an affordable senior housing project that's going to go online in a couple of weeks with 300 units. So we're continuing to build and approve affordable units in that particular section of OTR. Very sensitive to the idea that we're gentrifying and running folks out of there who can't afford it. I mean, there's no question, that we have to offset some of these more, market, what some folks call them luxury, really market rate. I mean, because some of them were the folks like at Liberty and Elm ran from 1,400 to, I think, all the way down to 750 in terms of the units per month. But we have to keep, we do have to be mindful, particularly in neighborhoods like Over the Rhine, that we need to keep approving and keep pushing, affordable projects there. There are folks, I hate the term legacy residents, but that's the term a lot of the affordable housing activists use. They do need opportunities to stay there. It isn't fair just to run folks out. And I'll tell you, in my mind, increasing rents is just another form of like kind of de facto segregation. I mean, you can run folks out of a neighborhood without legally redlining or doing anything like that by just simply making it less affordable. And I think that is something that we have to be extremely mindful of. Hey, Mr. Ivy, I think your mic's off
Yeah,
again.
there it is.
Sorry,
Thank you.
sorry.
So, what happens is, Steve, is that people end up being displaced, whether because they can't afford to buy into these neighborhoods, and in particular
Right.
because of the legacy of racism and the lack of attention in closing the black-white wealth gap. If you're putting up higher priced and not affordable housing, certain kind of folks can't even afford to even come back to the neighborhood or buy into the neighborhood,
Right.
and therefore it becomes gentrified. And that's what I'm trying to say. What is the long-term strategy? To me, I don't think I think on some levels, each development should be looked upon individually, but
Right.
through the lens of what your long-term goals are, right? It can't just be whatever comes across my desk sounds good, I'm going to roll with. It's got to be what's the
Right.
long-term vision and strategy. And hopefully, if we're talking about equity inclusion, that includes Black folks, that
Right.
includes folks that is not making $100,000 or even $60,000 a year, in the OTR itself.
Right.
So that's the reason why people were so upset about it. Yeah, it was an empty lot, but once you build it, is it going to be a place where Cincinnati and not just certain parts of Cincinnati can
Right.
actually afford to come down and enjoy? Because as you and I both know, OTR, man, some property down there is super high. Not
Oh, it's
everybody can
ridiculous.
afford to
Yeah.
be down there and enjoy the Renaissance,
I moved
unfortunately.
out of the area. I lived downtown for many years, and I moved out of it, and I've got a good job, and nobody needs to pay all that kind of, for that. And hey, look, I get your point. Liberty and Elm became a symbol, for all that. So I really too, it became a symbol for, on the affordable housing piece, probably beyond what the actual facts supported. But I understand that. But in terms of a bigger plan, I'll tell you this: it's got to be regional, and this is something I've been preaching since I've been on council. Is the Hamilton County has significant federal dollars that they've recently acquired that they're going to put toward affordable housing units, as has the city, and as has certain communities, and as have certain communities in northern Kentucky. And I think we got to take a regional approach on how we're building it and where it's going. And a lot of folks too, we need to get the stigma off of affordable housing. If you're making roughly, $55,000 to $60,000 a year, and you have a couple children, you will qualify for some sort of affordable housing assistance in the city. I mean, that's how it is. A lot of folks think of it as just, they use the average median income, 30% or below the totally subsidized housing. There's a lot of folks who qualify for the so-called workforce housing, and we're talking, teachers, police officers, nurses, people who start their salaries in that range. And we need all those folks in the city. I mean, the city has to grow if we're going to survive. Our tax base, we live and die by our earnings tax. Remote working is killing us. because a lot of these high earning folks who don't live in the city but used to work downtown, they may not come back every day of the week, thanks to remote working. I think that's a big cultural change that's permanent. So we have to get more residents. Back in 1950, Cincinnati had 500,000 people, give or take, living in the city limits. Now we barely have 300,000. We have to have more people. So
Yeah, and as a part of that, we have to attract, more black people as well. You know what I'm saying? Like when you
oh, of
look
course.
at who's successful and who's living good in Cincinnati, unfortunately, there's a racial aspect to that, right? That's
Right.
being clearly analyzed and put down on paper. I mean, going back a few years ago, the Urban League did a report about two Cincinnatians. To
Yep.
me, until we close the gap, Cincinnati will never reach the goals that we all want it to be, and you're not gonna attract the type of diversity in terms of people wanting to come and live in this city. That's why I think it's so important to have
Right.
policies, to have a strategy with intentionality that speaks not just to the general Cincinnati, because we know that, but the specific elements of the city, including Black Cincinnati as well. And that's why I keep asking about that. And you hear me keep coming back to it.
No, and you're
Um,
right. And look, and I'll tell you the key part to it. And I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off, but in my mind,
no, go ahead.
the key part of it to me is about encouraging home ownership, and not just encouraging home ownership, but getting our communities of color into the game as landlords and owners of property. And
I
that's
love that.
something.
So what's the plan, Steve? I love that. So what?
Yeah,
So having
no,
said that, what is your plan?
no, I will tell you. I will tell you right now. I will tell you right now what I want to do and what I have been pushing us to do is to use our big pot of affordable housing money from the federal government for just exactly that kind of program, to identify vacant properties, to sell them below cost, to subsidize their rehabilitation and their rehabbing, and to prioritize developers, contractors of color, the small folks. Like my dad used to flip houses. I used to flip houses before I went to law school. That's what I did. And it's a great way for folks to build wealth, but they need a leg up and to get into the business. And that's, to me, the main path, and that's the program that I want to really push. And the model that folks like Charlotte, North Carolina, Cambridge, Massachusetts, that's how they both helped with affordable housing and built wealth in their minority communities. They did it that way. They subsidized folks who want to do it. They would sell them the properties at very low interest or no interest special loan products, and then would help them with grants to rehab the property. In exchange for all that help, you'd have to keep the property at an affordable, what we call affordable or subsidized housing for 15 years. And at the end of the 15 years, you get the property free and clear. And that really helps both with affordability and also helps build wealth. And that's the program that we are working on right now.
Yeah, see, I want to hear more from that. I want to hear about intentional programs that are going to build Black wealth. It's going to build Black wealth across the board. Because when I
Right.
look at Cincinnati, I see the same old wealthy people getting wealthier. The same
Well,
old
there's
folks.
some of that. Yeah.
There's a lot of
Look,
that.
there is some
It's,
of that.
it's most of that.
Well,
Steve,
that's
it's most of that.
yes. And that's the frustration that folks have, I think, when they look at FC, too. I mean, I think, again, that is it's not where I think some of the disconnect is when we start talking about the specifics, say, of the FC Cincinnati deal, for instance. It's very defensible in the specifics, but FC, like the Liberty, becomes a symbol. Just like the Liberty and Elm development becomes a symbol on affordability. So I think that's fair, and I think where a lot of folks, particularly in the policymaking side, end up talking past the folks who have the questions, is on that very point. We end up saying, like, no, this is, look at this deal per deal, and on the other side, folks say, no, it's a symbol of what's been going on. So I think this is very, very true.
Yeah. Crystal
And
writes,
I would,
affordable and subsidized are not interchangeable ideas.
well, they're not, and I do, and frankly, I do use them a bit that way. There is such a thing as naturally occurring affordable housing, which is something when you study this, that is something that we really lack in Cincinnati right now. I mean, we still have a fair amount of what they call naturally occurring affordable housing in some of our communities outside the city, which is one of the things that we have trouble competing with. Whether it be a community like a Silverton, for instance, which has a lot of naturally occurring affordable housing, where it's not subsidized by a government program, but just the property values have stayed steady over a period of time. That's one of the things that we compete with and where we lose residents sometimes.
Okay, just a couple minutes left. I maybe got me one or
Yeah,
two
and
questions, and that's it.
I'm going to be real honest with you, Mr. Ivy. My iPad, stole my daughter's iPad this morning. It's about to die on me here, so it's
Okay.
properly charged. So if I fall off, it's not me. I'm not hanging up on you, and I really
Okay.
appreciate
Okay.
you taking all this time with me. I really
Okay,
do.
yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's the first time we talk, and I want to make sure the audience gets a chance to hear you. So, just a couple of questions. I mean, homicides, the gun violence in the city is a big issue. But what is your plan to address that? Do you think the Shot Spotter is working? Is it worth the money?
I do think ShotSpotter is not everything. ShotSpotter is, I do think, worth the money. I mean, they've had some really good success with it in Price Hill. I do think that should be expanded. They're not cheap, and they do really help. Got good reviews from the neighborhoods that have it, good reviews from CPD. But the biggest thing we can do, I mean, I think we got to do two different things. One is we need to, again, going back to the collaborative, we need that on the beat police people, officers out of their cars, walking the neighborhoods, building relationships and getting that intelligence. So many of the shootings we've seen this year, they've got nothing to do with drugs or other crimes. They're folks fighting or having relationship issues and things of that nature. And if a police officer will know who's mad at whom if they're out walking the beat, and I think that's good. And number two, what I'm hearing from folks, particularly, like I spent a lot of time over at Third Presbyterian at East Westwood with Rodney Christian and Abe Rannaberry and Tara Powell and that group. They said, look, just enforce the building codes, fix the streets, give our neighborhoods the same kind of attention that Hyde Park gets and Oakley gets in terms of, fixing the broken windows, and dealing with the problem properties, and just act like someone lives here is basically their argument to me, and that really touched my heart and pricked my conscience. And they're right. Like if you spend some time, if you go to Hyde Park on a Sunday morning at the farmers market, it's perfect. You go over to East Westwood on a Sunday morning, there's trash, blowing around. It shouldn't be that way, and it does send a message. I think that if the neighborhood isn't kept properly by the city, it sends a message that this is a place where you can go and act stupidly and do dumb things and engage in illegal conduct, because it just sends that message. And I think that's important. It's important to the residents to know that we care about it too.
And second to last, are you familiar with John Lewis's concept of good trouble?
I sure am.
Okay.
I
So
sure
Steve,
am.
give me an example of when you got into good trouble to advance the interests of the Black community or for diversity.
Well, look, I can tell you the one that just jumps right out to me was, look, I almost got ran out of the army one time because I refused to prosecute what was clearly in my mind a racially motivated and false rape charge at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was privileged to grow up in a very diverse neighborhood, went to very diverse schools growing up. Knew, from a fairly early age, I don't totally appreciate it. I'm certainly, I'm a white male, but I've seen enough as a human being to know how differently people can be treated. So, I have, throughout my life tried to stand up for folks when I felt like that there was some sort of racial bias or motivation going in. Also, I'll tell you, we pushed back real hard in our American Rescue Plan budget to make sure that a lot of smaller African American oriented nonprofits were funded. Like Mitch Morris's nonprofit was funded. Kevin Corey's, Wesley Chapel was funded. Hope Dudley was funded. These folks did not have lobbyists, and we took a lot of grief about giving them money because they weren't really in the mix. But I thought it was very important, particularly in the pandemic, to recognize the work that some of these smaller organizations are doing that are hyper focused on neighborhoods. I led that charge, and still people mad at me about it, but very proud of it. We also got some money to Reverend Mingo and his Right to Passage program, which I think over in Evanston, which again, coming out of the pandemic, it was just crucial that was funded. And, we fought for that, and very proud that we did.
All right. Well, Steve, thanks for your time. I'll give you a couple of minutes to just tell the people why they should vote for you.
Man, I don't know if they should or not, to be honest with you. Look, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be an honest broker, and I am what I am, and I hope everyone keeps an open mind. We're trying to take a very, like I say, nonpartisan approach. We're trying to bring some real competency to this, some honesty to this. I ask everyone if you have any questions. I mean, I manage my own Twitter account. I respond to stuff as frequently and often as I can. If you have questions, look at my Twitter. It's Gooden for Sensi. And, I'm happy to interact. You can ask me anything, and I'll what we need is honesty and some sort of authenticity. And Mr. Ivy, I thank you for what you're doing here. And I've seen some very tough questions here in the chat, and that's perfectly fine and appropriate. And you're providing a great forum for people to talk and to think about these issues. And thank you very, very much for what you've done here.
All right, Steve, thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Yeah, most def. That's my first time talking with Steve Gooden, y'all. What do you think? He is a white male Republican running for city council. He's got 2 endorsements. He's got the endorsement from the Charter Committee and also the Republican Party. What do you think? I just asked the questions and I try to mix in your questions as well. So again, I mean, whenever we have these candidates on, if you have questions, I can't get to everything, but if you drop it in the chat, I'll try my best to get to it. I try to take the ones that I saw first and then mixing in my own questions. It went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I'm okay with that. I mean, anything in the interest of trying to give people more time in front of the community or in our audience so you can make your best decision. Some people may already had their mind made up beforehand. Maybe you did, maybe you did not. That's completely up to you, but hopefully you can take this interview. Perhaps he'll do other interviews. I know he'll be on with the NAACP. I didn't really want to step on the toes because I might end up being the moderator and they didn't want to ask the same question again. So I'll reserve some of that stuff for the NAACP's forums that'll be starting up again next week. Make sure you check that out. But what did you think? 513-873-7134. Crystal Rice, thanks for being honest today, sir. Let me see here. Great interview. Yeah, I thought it was cool. Again, I think somebody says something about trying to listen. I'm gonna say it again. I don't believe in the Perry Mason moment. I don't do the aha. I don't try to do that. I just ask the questions and then follow up if it makes sense or it don't make sense and try to get an answer out of it. Sometimes they answer the question directly. Sometimes they do the yabba dabba do and they go around a corner. Smart people can listen to themselves. All I got to do is put the question out there. You can decide for yourself as to whether you think the answer is satisfactory or not. See, I know Donnie, she said she has some interactions with him and it wasn't too good. So it's real good when people show up in the chat. They can see you as a guest. They can see the chat so they can see what people are saying and give a sense for what they do. Somebody says the interview was too long. Well, I don't give a damn what you think about the interview too long. When you do your podcast with them, then you just do it 5 or 10 minutes with them. Then if you don't like the way I did it, start your own podcast, do it your way. And simple as that. Let me see. I'm trying to go back. I got to go back way back because we started talking about the Haitian migrant crisis, how it could be a death blow for the Biden administration. It's just a real bad look for him. A real bad look. And unless Biden, and even if he does, it's going to come back to Biden with some voters. But unless he comes out and does something that is above and beyond right to accommodate those folks, I wonder if black voters are going to remember that in 2022 and 2024. I would have to say, yeah. I'd have to say, yeah. But what do you think about Steve Gooden? Is he on your list? As I said before, I'm not opposed to voting for Republican candidates. If they make sense, they make sense. If they don't, they don't. Simple as that. I am not above it. But I want to understand who you are. And I was real with him. Here you are, white male Republican, used to work in the prosecutor's office. Who are you? People looking at you like, we don't know if we can trust you. That's something he's going to have to deal with some voters. But he's got the advantage of actually being on council now, and that might help him in some ways. We'll find out. Good morning to you. Let me see. Let's go straight to the phones. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mr. Ivy. This is your West Side Connection. Great interview, sir. I just tuned in at 6 a.m. California time, so I guess that'll be 9 o'clock. What I heard, Mr. Ivy, great interview, especially, sir. This is why I mess with you, Mr. Ivy. That last question that you asked about the John Lewis quote of making bad trouble.
Good trouble. Have you an example of you getting into good trouble, right?
Yes, example of getting into good trouble. When you ask that question, I'm like, damn, Nate is really, really, really good as an interviewer. So then when you ended the interview and you just said that he's a Republican, then it really clicked that was a hell of a question, Mr. Ivy, a hell of a question. But the reason I called was your cover art. I appreciate, Mr. Ivy, that you are discussing this topic. And I guess I can kind of take credit, or no, I guess, well, John from Florida kind of gets the credit for bringing this topic to the forefront as far as the chop shop is concerned. And one last thing before I go, I don't know if you heard, but breaking news last night that the Cory Booker, Tim Scott alliance to get the criminal police reform bill done, it's a no-go, Mr. Ivy. So you can add that to the list of things, along with the Haitian crisis at the border, that will probably be the death knell for the Democrats in the midterms, for sure, and in 2024, depending on who the nominee is for the Democrat Party. Because we pretty much all know that unless there's some miracle drug invented, that Joe Biden is going to be way too old to run for a second term. So that's pretty interesting. So I just want to get that call in real quick, Mr. Ivy. Thank you for covering the Haitian crisis in Del Rio, Texas. There have been many other platforms that have been covering it, but I'm glad to see that the Nathan Ivy Show is on the cutting edge of societal evolution. Drop Squad 52, dropping science to anyone who wants to fact check it. Peace.
Peace. Take it easy, brother. Appreciate the call. Societal evolution? That's a big one right there. I wouldn't say that. It's a story that people are talking about everywhere. Simple as that. People are talking about it everywhere. And I stand by what I said about you, Drop. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
What's up, Nate?
What up, Daryl?
From Atlanta.
What's up,
I
Daryl?
had to rebut him. I know you about to get off the air, but I had to rebut. I could not let him get away with that. And I know people in the chat are probably rebuking him. Look, here we go. Drop's gonna come in. I told you about what's going on at the border.
Right.
You already mentioned it about his insincerity about caring about the Haitian people. So we know where Drop is coming from. He's using it for political fodder. This thing with what was that second point he made about? What was his second point?
I don't remember.
But the whole thing is it's talking about the Democrats being in trouble, and I know what it was, justice reform bill.
Oh yeah,
look,
yeah, right.
Yeah, man, look, Tim Scott went into that justice reform bill in what I would say not in good faith, because he knew the Republicans and his side, and Tim Scott is going to toe the Republican line. I guess that was a Freudian slip. The lie too, that qualified immunity. I guarantee you that was the hang up. They didn't approach that in good faith. And Tim Scott, it's like, well, the Democrats blew it. No, bruh. The Republicans didn't come in good faith. All y'all about is obstruction. You're not trying to progress this country. And I wish you would stop it with his lying self. I mean, the brother comes on here with his miniature, alt middle crew spouting untruths, and then you got the de facto Republican operative from Cincinnati, Russia, talking about what he can do and what always disputing somebody. He's going after AFTAB, then he's going after the collaborative and what wasn't done. It's always he's the contrarian to the other side. And bruh, I see you. And everybody else sees you. You're not fooling anybody. I just hope the check is working. You a phony, bruh. That's why I don't put black in front of your name, Russia. Never. Not from me. But anyway, so, man, look. We know Drop. We know your game. We know your shtick. It's funny. It's good for the show. I enjoy it. I get a kick out of it. But it's getting tiring. Come with some substance sometimes. Change it up a little bit, bro. Peace out, Nate.
Appreciate the call. Daryl is letting his voice be known from Atlanta. Damn. Okay. Again, don't get it twisted. Drop is my brother. These are all my brothers, man. Drop is my brother. I support him. He supports me 100%. But just like with my real brothers, I keep it real with them. I don't lie to my peoples. I keep it real with them. Like, I think you on some mama. I tell them. So it ain't like I'm out. We're not cool anymore because we disagree. It's just a minor disagreement on an issue. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mr. Nathan Ivey and the good people of Cincinnati, as well as the good people around the world. And yes, those choppers. Before we get to drop, Nathan Ivey, you do great interviews. I enjoy your interviews. I don't know if maybe it's a technical glitch. Maybe the people that are listening hear you interviewing somebody, but on the internet, for some reason, I'm listening to you on your website, and I do not hear the response from your guests. It sounds like it's a great interview. You ask all the proper top of the questions, and you hit it on the mark, but I cannot hear, or should I say I barely, at a squeak, hear the guest's voice, and I got the volume all the way up, or I don't hear it at all. So maybe you might want to check that out. Okay, let's get to Drop. Thanks a lot, Drop, for the accolades calling from the West Coast. Yes, I did start the chime of onslaught of what the Haitians are going through. Drop and Nathan and anybody else that cares about the Haitian situation. It's a bigger picture that a lot of us are not picking up on dealing with this situation. And I'll explain it clearly and quickly. And that is the Biden's infrastructure. If you look at the infrastructure and all these people coming into this country, you think it's not a bigger picture? Anybody can come into this country. Once again, I often tell people, look at that. Next time you're in the New York area, go to the Statue of Liberty between New York and New Jersey. And that Statue of Liberty reads at the base, give me your poor, give me your hungry, etc., etc., etc. But it does not say don't let blacks come into this country. So the infrastructure is a bigger picture. You're looking at millions and billions of contracts across the country. This is a repeat from what Roosevelt did over 60 years ago. Put people to work. But they don't want black people of color to come here and go to work. Yeah, Cincinnati's, if you're listening to the Nathan Ivey Show, if you're a contractor and not prepared to bid on those contracts and get a piece of that pie, okay, yeah, the bigger contractor is going to get the money, but there's going to be something in the clause of that contract that state you have to hire minority contractors. If you go to your local papers across the country, a lot of African Americans are tooling in with some of these countries, contractors, learning the business, masonry, bridges, drilling, welding, etc., etc. I read the papers in Florida, and some of these Florida people are now partnering with these contractors because if that bill goes through, it's tilting on the side. It may not go through because the Democrats are playing footsie, should we say the liberal Democrats. Biden's got his head between his legs because he's having problems with that infrastructure. But the Haitian situation comes back to one thing. They don't want them in here because, yes, you're going to put them to work. Well, some will stay and some are going to be flown back. And that's why the liberal OSC and the groups, they have problems with allowing Biden to stop people of color or Haitians to come in here because it falls back once again to the infrastructure. That money across the country, local Cincinnatians, people of color, they want to make sure we don't get a piece of that pie. Nathan Ivey, you bring it up all the time about making sure local state in Cincinnati people have access to the banks, the monies, the contract. So if people there in Cincinnati, if you're not trying to collaborate with these, the city and the state to make sure you get a piece of that pie if the infrastructure bill goes through. We don't know that because right now it's not looking too good, but Biden will probably sell himself and cut a lot of deals with some of those Democrats that are playing footsie with the Republicans. He'll have to cut some deals just to get this bill come through. And it's all comes back to what we see on the borders. I'm pissed off when I see these guys on horses with those whips. It reminds me of slavery, on how what they allow to go on. History does repeat itself. You can chime in anytime. I'm sure you're agreeing with me with the infrastructure, because that's what it's all going to come down to. Stopping people from color, as many as possible. Some Democrats will jump on it and say, stop right there, Biden. Come on. You can't give out all these big contracts across the country, and people of color, women that are in the construction business are not getting a piece of that pie. Yeah, that's going to be infused in that infrastructure. But let's see what happens. If you sit back and wait, then you're going to miss the opportunity of getting those contracts, because you're looking at putting people at work across the country. And if they don't do it, who do you think's going to do it? The foreigners. That's why they're letting some of these people in here. They're going to put them to work. You best believe. The Mexicans have no problems working day, night, hot, cold. They don't believe, they have no problem working, and they don't complain. They'll probably take the minimum wages of $15 an hour. You think some of us is going to do that? Oh, it's going to be a fight if that infrastructure bill comes down the pipeline. It's going to be a lot of money. Let's see how it all plays out. Have a nice day, Mr. Nathan Ivey.
Thank you for the call. I think Mr. John from Florida. I could fact check some of that, but I won't. Just for the interest of time. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Mace again.
Hey, Mace.
Drop said he has evidence. The only evidence he has is what Sean Hannity said last night, and he repeated it this morning. And the Haitians and everybody else coming in here, and that bill that didn't pass yesterday. Look at the two people that had it, was trying to put it together. They're not working for the people. They're not working to make no change, because they look just like the one you just finished talking to with your interview. They ain't trying to make no change for this country. That's why it didn't pass. But they want people to get upset and be all out of whack and tell him his evidence. Go look at Sean Hannity every evening, and you can come back and say everything Drop just said this morning, word for word. And that's his evidence. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Drop it, Drop.
Said, go on Sean Hannity. You hear everything Drop just said. I wouldn't doubt it, man. My boy Drop love him some conservative media, man. He loves it. What is that? Oh, man. Show's nearly over anyway. So listen, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate everybody. I'll be back and hopefully better than ever tomorrow morning. Hold on. I think I missed out on a guest real quick. Let me double check here. Had a guest. This sister put together something called Boss. And I reached out to her, and I hoped I didn't miss a call from her or something like that. I'm gonna see if I can hook it up for tomorrow, and if not, then we'll push it to next week. But she's got a premiere opening up. They did a documentary with a lot of sisters in the city of Cincinnati, and did a profile on them. It's very, very interesting. So I want to do my help to move my part to move the needle and help promote it as well. Let me double check here. I'm trying to see. Okay, I'll have to do it once I get off the air. Because she definitely said Thursday. I said cool Thursday. I want to be a little bit long with Steve Gooden. I only had planned to do that for maybe like 30 minutes. It would have been a little bit longer because my guest didn't show up, but it might have been on me. I'll circle back and double check on that and make the proper connections so we can have that conversation. But again, thank you so much for being here. Tell people about this stream that we had Steve Gooden on. Perhaps it can be an educational resource for them. Give them one more opportunity to see these candidates to make a proper informed decision for themselves. All right. Have an excellent rest of your Thursday. Make sure you check out the midweek juice just yesterday with Ask Ashley. It's always fun and informative and something different throughout your day. You know, most of the shows that we're doing right now are like live stream, daily, if not weekly shows. They talk about current events. Her show is completely different. If you don't know, basically, you ever heard of Dear Abby? Very similar. Just bring it to the forefront is Dear Ashley, you know, on a millennial tip. So check that out. It's up on our page right now. She has a YouTube page as well. Check her out. Then, of course, don't forget this weekend, Straight Talk Live. If you missed it, Donnie B is on hiatus, work, other things going on. She stepped away. She'll come back in October with more Is It Just Me podcast on Fridays at 12:30. So again, this week on Straight Talk on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., Edna has Dr. Earl Ofari Hutchinson scheduled as a guest. You know, she typically has a guest on with her every single show. That's coming up on Sunday. And then, of course, you got the ladies of Melanin Insights podcast on Sunday as well. So have an excellent rest of your day, family. I'll be back with you and hopefully better than ever before you know it. Tomorrow morning, we'll chop it up. Typically on a Friday, I've got a guest schedule. We'll talk with the president of the Sentinels. There's some information and some news they made locally. Plus, I want to get their thoughts on what they're looking for in terms of city council endorsements from the Black Cincinnati police officer of point of view. I want to hear what that point of view is. So again, have an excellent rest of your day, fam. I'll be back and hopefully, as I said, for now the fourth time, better than ever tomorrow morning. We'll chop it up on everything, people, politics, and pleasure. Have an excellent rest of your Thursday. Until next time, I'm out.